Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Gloucester County Institute of Technology. My name is Michael Dicken, and as superintendent, it is certainly my pleasure to welcome you to GCIT and to the Gloucester County Educational Campus. We couldn't be prouder to have the opportunity to host today's forum on workforce education, focusing on New Jersey as a laboratory for America. GCIT is one of 21 county vocational technical schools in New Jersey with the mission of preparing all types of high school students for college and careers. Throughout New Jersey, county vocational technical schools educate approximately 33,000 students with over 450 state-approved career programs. Our students earn industry certifications and credentials, as well as the academic and technical skills to be both college and career ready. Today we gather in partnership with members from Opportunity America, the American Enterprise Institute, Advanced CTE, the New Jersey Council of County Vocational Technical Schools, the New Jersey Council of County Colleges, and the New Jersey Business and Industry Association. We're grateful for everyone who took the time to be with us today, and in attendance are representing the Gloucester County Freeholder Board, Freeholder Director Mr. Robert Daminger, President of Rowan College at Gloucester County, Dr. Fred Keating, New Jersey Council of County Vocational Technical Schools Executive Director Ms. Judy Savage, New Jersey Commissioner of Labor Mr. Robert Asaro Angelo, New Jersey Department of Education Acting Deputy Chief Academic Officer Dr. Linda Eno, President of the New Jersey Council of County Colleges Dr. Aaron Fichtner, Gloucester County Executive County Superintendent Ms. Ave Altersitz, Advanced CTE Deputy Executive Director Ms. Kate Blasverin Kramer, Rosenberger North American Senior Technical Advisor Dr. Ted Toth, American Enterprise Institute Moorgridge Fellow in Education Studies Mr. Andy Smarrick, American Enterprise Institute Program Manager Mr. Rooney Columbus, Opportunity America President and CEO Ms. Tamar Jacoby, also Anna Hardy, New Jersey Business and Industry Association Vice President Mr. Andrew Musick, New Jersey Community College Consortium Savaraman and Barrison, former New Jersey State Board of Education President Mr. Mark Beedram, New Jersey Skills Coalition Federal Policy Director Kermit Kaliba, New Jersey County Vocational Technical Schools Superintendent Phil Gunther from Atlantic County, Superintendent Dina Elliott from Cumberland County, Superintendent Nancy Hudenich from Cape May County, and School to Careers Coordinator Mark Casase from Passaic County. Also from the New Jersey State Board of Education is Mary Beth Berry and Kathy Goldenberg. Welcome to all of our guests. There are so many other representatives of agencies and institutions from Gloucester County, throughout New Jersey and across the region who are also here in attendance today. Also a special welcome to the delegates who have traveled from Washington, D.C. to be with us today. And again, thank you all for taking part in this important discussion in advancing career and technical education. And finally, I'd just like to thank students and the staff here, my students and staff here at GCIT and our administration, those at Rowan College of Gloucester County, and today's partners who have all been part of putting this together and welcoming everybody to our lovely campus here in Gloucester County, New Jersey. I hope that you have a wonderful day, enjoy the forum. We have a wonderful agenda for you, and I look forward to hearing what you have to say and what our panelists have to say going forward. At this time, please join me in welcoming Ms. Tamar Jacoby, President and CEO of Opportunity America, and have a wonderful day.
Thank you so much, Dr. Dicken, and thank you all for being here. So I'm president of one of the Washington co-sponsoring organizations, Opportunity America. We're a small policy shop in Washington, D.C. A couple quick opening remarks. First, thank you. Pick up where the thank yous left off. And thank you above all to our host, Gloucester County Institute of Technology, and thank you to the Gloucester County students for all their help. Thank you to our wonderful co-sponsors in New Jersey, New Jersey Business and Industry Association, Career Tech New Jersey, New Jersey Council of County Colleges, and thanks to all of you for being here. And just one last call out, thanks to the congressional staff who are here. Well, you know, we people in Washington, we care about the congressional staff. Thanks to the congressional staff who are here, Alfred Mason from Senator Booker's office, and Mary Cruz from Representative Norcross's office. So one piece of housekeeping, we're live streaming. So There's 100 of you in the audience, and a lot of you know each other. There are 2,000 or 3,000 people you don't know watching us on TV. So our speakers will be framing their remarks for you who know what they're talking about when they talk about New Jersey, but also for 3,000 people in Washington who don't know New Jersey and aren't probably as familiar with career education as you are. And that's also important for the speakers, but it's also important for you. If you ask a question, just remember you're on TV. Finally, before we start, I'd like to say just a few words to frame the conversation very briefly, how this event came about, and the topic of the day. So how it came about, why the heck are 3 Washington organizations and 3 New Jersey organizations co-sponsoring a day about career education in Gloucester County? And the answer is it's a wonderful time for career education in America. As you all know, because you're on the front lines, a time of ferment and experimentation and innovation in the states and rich policy conversations in Washington. And it's an important topic to all 3 of the DC organizations that are on the top line of the screen here. And one day, the people from these 3 organizations were in a seminar together, and we realized, wait, we've all done research on New Jersey in the last 6 months or so. We've all done, of all the 50 states, we've all picked New Jersey to lift up and say, wow, something exciting is going on there. So, we kind of thought, what should we do about this? Should we do something with it? Is there a next step? Perhaps it would be useful to have an event in New Jersey where we tried to do 2 things. Lift up what the state's doing right for others to see, right? This interesting experiment, there are 50 states out there. Let's lift up what New Jersey's doing. And also to bring New Jersey stakeholders together and have a conversation about next steps. And of course we know, right, the worst words in the English language are, I'm from Washington and I'm here to help, right? We have no illusions about that. So we're really here, we're not here for that. We're here to listen and ask questions and celebrate what New Jersey is doing, and we're very excited about it. And then number 2, the last thing I'll say, the topic, very briefly, the topic of the day, the title kind of says it all, Workforce Education, New Jersey as a Laboratory for America. And we'd like to ask and answer really we'd like the day to ask and answer 4 simple questions about career education in New Jersey. What's working? What's the secret sauce that you guys have going on here? Number 2, what are the next steps? What are you going to do with that secret sauce? How are you going to build to go to the next level? Number 3, what can the state do to advance it? I kind of have the theory about career education that it's a very exciting time of experimentation and innovation. Government can help, but government also shouldn't be in the way. And number 4, what, if anything, can DC do to help? Money comes from there and regs come from there. Can they help? Should they just get out of the way? What do you need from Washington? So what's working? Next steps? What the state can do to help advance those next steps? And what, if anything, Washington can do? And with that, I will pass the mic to Kate Kramer, who's the Deputy Executive Director of Advanced CTE, to introduce our keynote. Kate?
Good morning, everyone, and welcome those of you far away. I'm Kate Kramer. As I said, I'm the Deputy Executive Director of Advanced CTE. We are a national nonprofit that represents state CTE directors and other state leaders from across the country. And I'm really honored to be here to be partnering with both the national and the in-state partners. We've had a long and strong relationship with New Jersey and really excited to be able to dig in and show the rest of the country some of the great work that's happening here. So I am here to do an introduction for our keynote, the Commissioner of Labor and Workforce Development, Robert Asaro Anhelo. When I reached out and said, what should I say about you to introduce, his staff said, don't read his bio, you have his bio, just make sure everyone knows that he is born, bred, New Jersey through and through. So I've now done that. I'm now gonna turn it over and invite our commissioner to come up and say a few words about the future, the current state and the future of CTE in New Jersey. Thanks.
Thank you. Morning, everybody. And also, you don't even read my bio because everybody here mostly knows me. For those who are joining online, you may not know me or know New Jersey yet, but my goal over the next 4 years, and maybe more, is to make sure that you all know about what's going on in New Jersey and that we're held up as a model and example for the rest of the country on how to do things right in the workforce space. So thanks Tamar, thanks Michael Dickin, thank you for all the sponsors for having me here today. When I got here earlier, I see a lot of familiar faces and sort of reviving history about where we've worked together in the past, so it's really inspiring to see all the faces in this room and think about all the great work that we've all done together already. And hopefully we're going to be doing this all year long and for the foreseeable future. All you are enhancing the partnerships that make education more valuable in the real-world workforce, and you are in turn making New Jersey's workforce stronger and more sustainable because of the sound educational foundation that was built upon. I just want to answer one of Tamar's questions about federal government, being a help. I was a federal government staffer for 7.5 years under the Obama administration in the Department of Labor. So yes, I think it's a clear help to local efforts, and I do not think that it gets in the way. And I think that one of our goals here in New Jersey is to making sure we're getting more help and using more effectively the help from the federal government to align our systems and to stop leaving money on the table that is here to come to our students, to our workforce, and to those supporting them. So I'm going to borrow from my boss, Governor Murphy, who recently said, we do not know her name, but somewhere in New Jersey right now is the next Wizard of Menlo Park. We must make sure that she stays here and succeeds here. I know that over the past year or so, New Jersey set an aspirational and attainable goal to raise the educational attainment level of our state to 65% by the year 2025. I want to thank my predecessor and friend, Dr. Aaron Fichtner, for moving this important initiative forward. His efforts on this front should be applauded, and I don't know if he's here yet, but I'm going to applaud those efforts. Thank you, Aaron, and my predecessors at the State Department of Labor. I want you to know that we never saw this as a Christie administration goal. This is not going to be a Phil Murphy goal. This is a New Jersey goal. Putting New Jersey residents into quality jobs is not a partisan issue. The good news is that the needle is moving in the right direction. According to the Lumina Foundation, we were at 50.2% educational attainment in New Jersey last year. Today, that number is at 51.2%. It's certainly a start, and if we keep going that rate, hopefully we'll hit our goal by 2025. And if we want to continue to see progress, we need to take advantage of all the resources and opportunities before us. I stand with the governor and the recommendations of the transition report, which means expanding dual enrollment opportunities, increasing paid internships, cooperative education, and other earn-while-you-learn opportunities that will benefit students, employers, and our workforce as a whole. In fact, tomorrow morning, I will bring these very issues up at my first Assembly budget hearing in Trenton. This is my first budget testimony as commissioner, so I want to thank all of you here for volunteering to help me practice my opening remarks. This administration will be launching additional initiatives that are designed to help new pathways and opportunities for New Jerseyans in the near future. We've allocated $10 million in funding to oversee the creation of a New Jersey apprenticeship network. This is specifically designed to be a statewide youth and adult pre-apprenticeship and apprenticeship career readiness network. We want to create new pathways for high school and community college students, veterans, people with past convictions, long-term unemployed job seekers, and others to access high-demand, high-paying careers through apprenticeships that result in college credit. I want to be very clear. A lot of folks in this room and around the state are already doing these things. We want to work as a state to make sure that we're taking the best models from one section of the state and bringing it to another, or there's parts where there's geographic disparity and where these programs are being held. I want to make sure that we're working as a statewide initiative to make sure these are be able to touch all workers in New Jersey, all students in New Jersey. We've allocated $9.5 million to design, develop, and implement the New Jersey Career Network based upon the New Start Career Network at Rutgers that was founded and funded by Governor Murphy and his wife Tammy. As you all may know, New Jersey has among the highest long-term unemployment rates in the country, and currently we have an unemployment rate above the national average. The new New Jersey Career Network will support our workforce system with integrated, web-based, and customer-focused information and technology. We have allocated $9 million to launch the Upskill New Jersey Workforce Development Local Partnership Grant Program. This program would support community workforce training or partnerships that serve small to medium-sized employers, including women, veteran, minority, and disability-owned businesses. Our goal is to identify short-term hiring needs and use grant funding to specifically train to those jobs. We have allocated $3 million to go toward the New Jersey Career Accelerator Internship Program, where we will reimburse employers up to 50% of wages paid to new interns enrolled in New Jersey's high schools, colleges, or universities up to $1,500 per student. These are just a few of the programs that are part of a new $34.5 million plan funded by the Workforce Development Partnership Fund, which is something that all taxpayers in New Jersey fund. In the past administrations, I'll emphasize the S on administrations, a lot of this money was diverted to go to the General Treasury or other priorities in the state. My goal as commissioner is to get much of this money back into where it belongs, in workforce training. I made a big ask my first year, clawing back about a third of those diversions, and I'm very proud to say that the governor agreed, and hopefully the legislature will agree after my great testimony tomorrow and next week. We know that these investments are paramount to our future, giving workers the skills they need to succeed, to find the work they are passionate about, and enjoy the dignity that gainful employment can bring. But this quest for dignity doesn't end with getting a job. Dignity comes when workers are paid the proper wages and overtime they are due. Dignity comes when workers don't fear for their safety when they start their workday. And dignity comes when all workers, regardless of their sex, national origin, immigration status, or any other factor for that matter, are afforded the same rights in the workplace as everybody else around them. You will see a common thread in the work being done in labor: fairness and equality. I am proud to put those at the forefront of our mission, in our labor standards and in our workforce development. I look forward to working with New Jersey's higher education institutions, including our community colleges and vocational schools, to make sure this pipeline we are building between education and the real-world needs of the workforce align. I know there's been a lot of support from our legislators on both sides of the aisle who want to see an expansion of career and technical education efforts in the state, and we wholeheartedly support that. We know that our partners producing these programs, many of who are filling this room today, are already aligning curriculum to New Jersey's key industries like healthcare, financial services, life sciences, construction trades, transportation, and technology. I'm as excited as well to see all of you, I am excited as all of you to see how our state will continue to lead on this front, and I'm proud to be part of that. And I encourage everyone to keep these conversations going. We all want the same things. The relationship between education, government, and the private sector is circular if it's going to be successful. While it's great that so many came together for this cause today, there are many who aren't in this room, and should be, not just those looking online, folks around New Jersey. You have the duty to spread this message. Partnerships and communications aren't for the benefit of one of us, it's for the benefit of all of us. So let's continue to lead the way in aligning our goals so we can make the Garden State's workforce the most highly educated, highly skilled, diverse, and dignified in the country. Thank you. I'll take questions here. Please give me lots of questions to practice my testimony. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Wait, I guess the microphone's coming over.
Good morning. I'm Christine Tomkis with the Department of Education. And I really enjoyed your presentation and your speech and talking about all the initiatives that are going to be moving forward in New Jersey. I was wondering if you have any collaborations or discussions with the military for students and adults that are out of the workforce that may be interested in joining the military because of the education benefits that the military offers, as well as the job training and opportunities for people to advance their careers just by joining the military or looking into some options with the military.
I personally have not yet as commissioner, but at the U.S. Department of Labor, one of our agencies is VETS, Veterans Employment and Training Services, which is sort of the back end when folks return. But I know for a fact the military has some of the best apprenticeship programs in the country, and I'm happy to work with the Department of Education and whoever else is in your office to work with our VETS office and our VETS director in our office to figure out how we can work with students on that, because I think that's, again, we talk a lot about job readiness, pathways for students who aren't going to go to a four-year college, and that's certainly one of the best pathways. So I think that needs to be part of the conversation that I'm happy to be a part of.
Hi, Kim Case with the Research and Development Council on the New Jersey STEM Pathways Network. I don't think that the internship reimbursement program was utilized as well as it could have been last year, so I wanted to know what the department's plans were to ensure that we got more input and participation this year.
Well, just to be clear, all these things I'm talking about have to be approved in the budget, which won't be until July 1st. So we don't want to get too far down the road of how, but I just know for a fact that, when I worked at the U.S. Department of Labor, most of my job was outreach. I worked across 17 different agencies in the field, helping them with outreach. They had a lot of staff that are doing enforcement, audits, everything else. And while there's a great, amazing staff at the State Department of Labor, let's just say they've been hollowed out over the past couple administrations. And the staff availability for outreach to outside groups wasn't always maximized. There was so much going on in that department and in the building that had to be done, especially as staff kept being reduced and not backfilled. So we're very anxious to use some of this funding to pay for staff to be out there talking to businesses. Also, I think, and I'm so happy that NJBIA is here today. I know they're a big user. They're a great partner of ours on training dollars. But there's also other groups out there who might not be in the know. And in my year out, I work for a group called the Employers Association of New Jersey, which has 4,000 members across the state, of sort of these small and medium-sized businesses and mom and pop shops who really need this help. But like I said before about, who's not in this room? Folks who are running a small business, they don't have time to come to events like this. They don't have time to even go to their Chamber of Commerce meetings. They don't have time to be out. So it's figuring out the best ways to be involved and get in front of them, whether that be through social media, just being out there as much as you can, pounding the pavement, getting on the road, working with accountant groups, HR groups. I think it's sort of like throw everything at the wall as you can. And I will look forward to working close with NJBIA about what's been successful to them to get the word out about some of their programs. So I think if you have advice, come see me afterwards, because I'm always looking for ways to make sure that more folks are engaged in our programs, because whether it be on the workforce side, on the employer side, back to the federal funding, we have a lot of federal funding available that isn't used. And there's a lot of state funding that hasn't been put to use either, mainly because of lack of knowledge about it.
Hi, this is Ray Vicari from New Jersey Institute of Technology.
Hi, Ray.
Hi. CT schools are doing a great job of educating our students and preparing them for the workforce. But one of the issues is that it seems, obviously, our parents, their parents, the kids' parents, and counselors, the kids themselves are being pushed to go to college right away. There certainly is a great need for these kids to go to work right away and earn while they learn. And maybe have that doesn't preclude them going to college.
Right.
The companies could pay for that as well. There's currently a 17,000 student backlog for CTE schools going into CT schools in New Jersey. We need to have more funding. I think the CT schools need to be expanded dramatically in order to meet that need. I just want to know what your thoughts are on that. Thank you.
I agree 150%. It's funny, I talk a lot about Mr. President McDonough here from Meriden Valley, and last time we met, we talked about, a lot of us adults talk a lot about, we should be having kids realize there's not just college to go to, and there's other pathways. Who in this room, raise your hand, when you were 16 or 15, were thinking about your career pathway? For those online, no one, maybe 2 people have raised their hands. And I think that's a dilemma. So I think it's like, we see it very clearly. Here's this other pathway. But I think now you see the backlog about seats in the vocational schools, I think sort of shows that things are shifting. So we've got to make sure that we're all working together to make sure we have the support for them. I know there's a bond referendum proposal in the legislature, which will sort of address some of those needs that I think has bipartisan support. But I do think it's sort of just figuring out how we change the dynamics of getting kids to think about their career, or maybe they don't need to have the full answer when they're 15 or 16, but sort of have them have the options. And I think having working while you're in high school, I think is great. I worked when I was in high school on a path to my early career, which is in television broadcasting and sports broadcasting. But it was a great way to sort of be on the job, get that kind of real world skills and make money. I think that's a big part of it. I look close to working with Commissioner Epaulet and other folks about how to make that more of a reality. I know he talks about when he was superintendent at Asbury Park, he literally went door to door to every business in Asbury Park to talk to them about hiring kids in his schools. Clearly, we don't have time to go to every business in New Jersey for every 600 school districts. I think we need to figure out a statewide system for allowing that to improve and get better so we can serve our students better.
Hi, I'm Amanda from the National Governors Association. I know the state of New Jersey is engaged with us on a project to address 2 generational strategies. Could you speak a little bit about kind of maximizing federal funds to support those disconnected populations?
I got a memo on this yesterday. I didn't read
it. Well, I mean, just even talking about maximizing what's coming in to get some of those folks who are unemployed or supporting them as they support children.
I don't want to sound dumb not knowing I should about this program, but I want to say I think it's been very clear from my start here that I am very concerned about barriers to employment. And I think barriers aren't just for the people we're serving; they're in their families. They're passed down from generation to generation, unfortunately. And I know that what we want to do is make sure that all of our folks who are interacting with people we're serving, that we're asking about what else is going on in their family, what can we do to help all the different barriers they're facing, whether it be transportation, childcare, food security. I think that all of our all the different government agencies who are dealing with all this stuff need to do a better job of working together. I mean, that sounds easy and it's trite, and everyone talks about breaking down silos. But I talk about breaking down silos and getting out of the barn, getting off the farm, and getting out in the community, talking about how we address these issues. So there's no doubt in my mind that we need to go after some of these two-generation strategies. I'm thinking also now, because my mother is a volunteer for CASA, Court Appointed Special Advocates in Atlantic County, and to hear the stories that she talks about trying to get foster kids returned to their natural parents who have faced homelessness and had their children taken away because they're homeless because they couldn't get a job, and now that they're on the verge of getting back on their feet and getting a job, they have to go to all these meetings to go to DIFAS and this and that, or DFS, and so hearing about these barriers and how of course the mothers were also foster children, it's something that I think about every day. And I am very proud to have somebody on my staff who came from the U.S. Department of Labor Women's Bureau, Jill Gutierrez, who's sort of running up that program for us. So I'm going to make sure I have a better answer for you next time I see you. DeBar had a question.
So I'll take you up on your invitation to follow the money. And I think for this audience and for the federal audience as well, I didn't quite understand what you've clawed back a third of. Is that federal money? And if you could talk about how the federal money and this, what do you get, how do you pay for career education in New Jersey in terms of federal money and state money? Paint a picture of that for us. That'd be really interesting.
I'm going to go to the first part first. It is not federal money we're clawing back. It is state money. In New Jersey, we have a payroll tax that goes into the Workforce Development Partnership Fund. I'll have my CFO next to me tomorrow, but I think it's about $140 million that goes in every year, and I want to say 90 million of it goes back to the General Treasury. And this intersects with federal funds because a lot of federal funds are matching funds. We met yesterday with SNAP E&T. So SNAP is part of the food service, and E&T is the employment and training side of it. And besides formulaic money, they also have a humongous pot of 50-50 match when there's state dollars in it. So not having that money available to us really hampers our ability to serve folks who are in the most need, quite frankly. And not having that, besides just the funding, it's not just funding, a lot of our money goes directly to follow individuals in the workforce system. SNAP money can be used to pay for administration of programs where SNAP participants are part of it. So I think it's a lot of money left on the table on that front, so having more of that state money back to us will help get some of that federal money back in, but also it's just about administration of programs. Get aligning systems. We have a lot of New Jersey, folks who aren't here, we have 21 counties, 604 school districts, 19 different workforce areas, 535 municipalities. So it's understandably hard to work across and coordinate government services. But I think having the state as a leader and being able to staff up and sort of be out there and on the ground to sort of oversee those programs is going to be a big help. It's not going to be a catch-all to fix everything, but I think we have an ability to make tremendous progress. And we have a new Assistant Commissioner for Workforce Development, Hugh Bailey, who comes to us from Philadelphia, so some great things there. And when I talked to him about coming on board, in Philadelphia, you're one workforce area, and you're sort of defined by what the state can and can't do. But coming to New Jersey is a challenge and an opportunity because we have so many different workforce areas. If something doesn't work in one area or someone doesn't want to do something in one area, we can work with others to sort of try pilot projects or different initiatives in one area that we can then replicate in the others.
That's really interesting and helpful. Can you just follow up? A lot of us in DC think about Perkins and Perkins money coming into the state. Is there a ratio of state to Perkins? I mean, what do you want from Perkins, I guess is really
That'd
the
be
question.
A better question.
Do you want
for somebody.
double? Do you want 8 times as much?
That'd be a question for somebody else in another department, but I don't want to put a goal on it. And I'm still only 3 months in the job, still trying to figure out what's going on. But like I said, I'm also always happy to talk about. I want us to be the clay that other folks who have good models to mold. We don't have all the answers. I'm happy to steal best practices. I was with the NGA last week or a week and a half ago in DC with a couple other groups in DC saying, give me all your best practices. The good thing about being Commissioner of Labor My last job, I was at the federal U.S. Department of Labor, and I would go to these great events and ribbon cuttings, or a tour or a round table of some great program, and there was 8 participants. How do we scale this up? Or I'd hear about these best practices, but I was so far removed at the U.S. And I wasn't even in the Employment Training Administration. I had to go tell somebody else about it, and then maybe they could share it with somebody else. But we had no direct ability to fund programs or grow programs. That's why I'm excited to be here. So all those best practices I've learned about and seen and contacts I've made around the country, I'm always calling them and saying, hey, how'd you do this? Give me your plan off the shelf. I'm going to take it. I'll give you credit, but we're going to use your success to make sure we're doing the same thing here for New Jersey's workers. So all you folks online, send me all your good models and practices. And money. Great, thank you for having me here today. We're going to do great things together for New Jersey.
Aren't the mics up here? Does that work? All right, good morning, everyone. How are you? Oh, that wasn't too encouraging. All right. My name's Andy Smerrick. I work for AEI. I want to say thanks to Tamar and Kate for helping to put this on, and Rooney Columbus, who's an extraordinary job. So this wouldn't happen if it weren't for the efforts of them and GCIT. So thank you to everyone who makes this great event actually possible. So I wrote this study on New Jersey CTE county-based high schools a little while ago. Because what New Jersey is doing is so interesting and so promising and has so much to teach so many people who are watching at home, whether in Washington, D.C. or another state. And so by way of background, some of you know I see some old friends here. I used to work at the State Department of Education for a while, but it is intimidating to try to talk to the practitioners and the experts about the thing that you're talking about. So if I get anything wrong, bear with me, and the panels are going to correct me if I make some mistakes once we get to that. I'm just going to go about 12 minutes, and then we'll be done, and you can hear from the interesting folks. So the basics are this. I'm just going to really walk through kind of the nuts and bolts of why this is so interesting. That at the end of the day, what I wrote about was policy analysis and case study. Your statutes and regulations, which sounds really boring, but it gave life to a sector of schools that turned out to be extraordinary. And then so I then ended up walking around a bunch of the schools and talking to people to figure out what was going on. And so over the next 12 minutes, what I'm going to talk about, the basics of these schools, the policy decisions, like the affirmative decisions that people made, not always knowing what was going to come of it, that led to the schools, the consequences of those great decisions, and then ultimately, if I have a little bit of time, recommendations and conclusions. Okay, so that's the order of operations here. So the basics. Some of you will already know this. For the people at home, probably less so. New Jersey has 21 different counties. Each of which have access to these CTE programs. In some places there's just one campus, in some places there are multiple campuses. It's also the case that these schools serve about 32,000 kids, so the size of a good-sized district across the entire state. Traditional public schools are allowed to have CTE programs, but these are the standalone, single-purpose, technical high schools that kids are opting into. And this is where things become even more interesting. The model that you have chosen, actually, we can only find one analog in Delaware, where the counties are actually given the same authority to run these kinds of schools. And this is a very important policy thing for any wonks here, people watching, which is you can have public education, you can embed it in a government body, but it does not have to be a traditional school district. In this case, it can be counties, and remarkable things happen when you do that. And the last thing I want to point out for people is New Jersey is so different. You folks know this, but rural, suburban, urban, great poverty, great affluence in some areas, very different employers. And that actually becomes really important because some of the other factors I'm going to be talking about. Okay. Key policy decisions. In this paper, I found 20 things that you folks had decided to do that were really important, but I want to highlight 4 of them. The first is this one about governance and operations. The state allows a county government to create a board of vocational education, and this doesn't happen everywhere. That county can then staff that board with members who then get to create these schools largely of their choosing. And this is different than the 590 traditional school districts that are in the state. But to underline 100 different times, these are public schools, entirely public schools, just governed differently. Second, really importantly, these are schools of choice. Kids, families are opting into them, saying that they want what these schools are offering, and families aren't the only ones. Teachers are opting into them as well. So these are standalone schools that are proving, because of their large wait lists, that there's actually important demand for them as well. Third, and this becomes interesting, especially for people who are thinking about this in other states. The schools here are allowed to have admissions policies, meaning entrance criteria. It could be 7th and 8th grade course grades, it could be attendance, it could be discipline, or other things. How these are used varies based on school to school and county to county, but they do exist. It's a decision other places will have to wrestle with. And then last is funding, which I'm going to talk much more about. They are part of the state funding formula. They get a little bit extra money, as a matter of fact, because they cost more money to actually run. The county governments, and I'm going to show you this in a second, actually add a whole lot of money to the mix, unlike in a lot of different places. And then there's this interesting thing about tuition reimbursement, that these schools, because they're more expensive to run, are allowed to charge a little bit of tuition to the district that sends students to them. Okay. Consequences. So what does all this stuff actually add up to? Please hold. There we go. Variation by counties and the programs that they have. This is not a cookie cutter model, which I just find exhilarating. Because the counties are so different here, it's actually the case that they prioritize different things. Finance could be important in one place. Hospitality could be important in another place. Maybe there's a medical program that's in high demand elsewhere. I visited one county where they, for interesting historical reasons, have 3 or 4 or 5 different jails and prisons. Interestingly, in that school, the law enforcement program turns out to be in high demand. I'm going to get back to this generally. But the gist here is when you have this kind of model, how fascinating that you can then make sure that employers and policymakers and families are all on the same page deciding what kids need. Second, and this is where it gets a little bit touchy, but we're all friends here. When you add up this combination of geographic variation, counties being able to do what they want, families being able to choose, and entrance criteria. A consequence of that is that you end up having schools that have very different performance levels and very different compositions. In some cases, these schools match what's going on in their counties demographically. In sometimes it's a little bit less so. So here's one example of Somerset County that I found. The demographics of the county almost perfectly match the county vocational school. Whether we're talking about race or ED, economically disadvantaged, they're mirrors of one another. That's one model, and people could say that's terrific. But then there's Bergen County that has multiple campuses. Each of the columns you see represents one of the different campuses that they have. And different sized columns mean that they have different proportions of students in these different campuses. The little blue line that goes across, I just put the county average in there. So it is the case that this wonderful school, the Academies, has something like 50+% students of Asian descent, even though that's much higher than the county as a whole. I think the Paramus campus has something like 6 times more economically disadvantaged kids than a different campus. I'm not rendering any judgment here, but when you create a system of choice and have all these different methods, you're going to have different schools ultimately doing different things. Okay, and so that also leads to this really interesting phenomenon of different performance levels. So here I think I have Middlesex County. There are 3 of their schools that have extraordinarily high PSAT scores, 500 points higher than one of the other schools. Pretty interesting. Different schools in one county created with the exact same policies, leading to different results. And the same thing actually plays out in test scores. For those of you who follow ELA, state standardized tests, there are differences here as well. just one more note about that amazing Bergen Academy School. The data that I found showed that they have PSAT scores at the 97th percentile nationally, which is mind-bogglingly good. Private schools would love to have that. So that is one wonderful thing, but for those of you who maybe grew up like I did, that is not what many people think of when we're thinking about the traditional VOTEC program. Okay, next consequence. I'm going to start to move along here as quickly as I can. This third consequence relates to the fact that these schools are traditional public schools in many senses, same rules, same regulations, but they also are doing the CTE stuff on top. It is supplementary to everything else. So they have the same traditional classrooms and departments, but then they also have to have another wing that does automotive and cosmetology and all these things that other places don't. So someone who's never been to one of these schools might be surprised at the scope, the scale, the sprawlingness of this and how they get their money. And that leads to this. That no one, we should love these schools, but no one should think they can be done on the cheap. These schools actually cost some money to do. As you see from this is the most recent data. 3 of these counties are spending more than $30,000 a year per student on these schools. When you have expensive capital and you need equipment and you need teachers, it's expensive. It's necessary to do. The red column there is just the statewide average for districts that have at least one high school. This is a substantial cost and people should take it seriously. Related to that is, where do these schools actually get their money? Look what the biggest contributor is. County governments. For the people watching at home, these are so valuable to the county leaders, they've decided that they're going to put a whole lot of money into it because it's so important to them and their employers. Second off is the state, which is contributing a bunch, but also almost a quarter of the money comes from this tuition program where the county is able to charge back to districts for educating the kids because it's just much more expensive. Please hold. Okay, this gets to be some of my favorite stuff that I found. I just loved what a tight relationship these schools have with their county leaders. Constant conversations about budget and the needs of families and the needs of employers. There was this one leader I talked to who made this fascinating point where in their county they are concerned that a lot of students are going to graduate from high school, leave the state to find a job or go to college, and then never come back. So that leads to a conversation among the school, the higher education community, county leaders saying, how do we make sure that there are higher education opportunities and jobs here so our kids can stay here if they would like to? And then this last one, which is the one that blew me away, that this model has enabled there to be these tight links between these schools and community colleges. I mean, we are, what, a stone's throw away from the community college here from this campus? This is not common in lots of other places. There's at least one other county here where they're contiguous to one another. Students are able to take classes at a community college. They can share facilities. They can end up getting an AA degree and a certificate. This model has enabled a seamless progression from student to college student to worker in a way that we just don't see in so many other places. Okay, last one. Let me do this lightly because it's a tension thing, and I'm not here to pick any fights, but it's something worth thinking about. The more people I talked to, the more folks said, listen, we got to get serious about the fact that some districts get a little bit frustrated with these kinds of schools. They can be accused of creaming the best students, of charging this tuition amount, of running a different kind of school. The fact that the sending district also has to pay for transportation gets underneath some people's skin. And then the last point I want to raise here about tensions, it leads to like the conclusion. It's something that I think we should all talk about today, and I'm going to push the panel on, which is, in talking to a number of these school leaders, it turns out that inside of the schools there are some frictions about old CTE compared to new CTE. Are we still doing welding? Are we still doing automotive in the way that we used to? Or are we meant to jump into the future and do things like culinary arts or engineering or something else? And that raises a very basic question for all of us to grapple with. Who are we supposed to be serving? Kids who are going to college or kids who are not? Both? A subset of them? And then that leads ultimately to the big question of all. In today's era with so much changing, what is the ultimate purpose of high school CTE programming? And then I will just quickly run through these recommendations. This novel governance model of giving power to your county governments is one of the most interesting things I've seen in public education reform in quite some time. If it were up to me, I would replicate this in every state. Getting county governments more involved was genius. Second thing is this higher education partnership. For anyone watching at home who's thinking about this in their states, my hypothesis is if you have a county government that oversees both high schools and a community college, it is natural for there to be a way to have a conversation among the three. If you decide not to have the county government involved, how are you going to have CTE talk to higher education, talk to employers in the exact same way? It's a question for people to grapple with. Two-way choice, there's no other way to say it than this. It is priceless to have families be able to choose into a school, and it is priceless to have a school be able to set entrance criteria so everyone's on the exact same page. But it's not costless. There are lots of people who think that ultimately that is unfair, that it's not serving all kids. And if I had a nickel for every time I heard that, I could probably pay for a year's tuition at one of the schools. And the last thing just relates to clarity of purpose, which is my leading question to all of our guests here. There are lots of things that these schools can do. They can prepare kids for college, or they could prepare kids directly for work. They could prepare students to take jobs immediately in their local community, or we could prepare kids to be prepared for jobs globally that are around the corner. You could think of 50 different things these schools could be charged with doing, and all of them are legitimate, but they're different from one another. Sometimes if you want to accomplish A and policy does A, it won't enable you to do B. So the people watching in other states and the federal government, this is a big question that I'm going to press all these folks on. Before we decide what policies we need, we probably ought to decide what the ultimate purpose is, what our goal with these schools are, and then we can backtrack and have the right policies in place. All right, let me stop there. I hope that was sufficiently provocative to get the conversation going and get the guests up here. Is that right? All right, good. Please, come on up. Kate? Phil? Mark? Oh, thank you, everyone. So you probably know these folks. Kate was up here earlier. We have Linda Eno from the New Jersey Department of Education, who's going to go first. Mark Kikase from the Passaic County Technical Institute, and then Phil Gunther from Atlantic County Institute of Technology. What we decided is it would probably make sense for Linda to go first, speak from the state's role, how they are thinking about all of these issues. I should underline, and maybe she will do this as well, what I was talking about, the county-based programs, but it's also the case that lots of traditional districts are doing work along these lines. So we'll start there, then go to our two school leaders, and then finish off with Kate, who's going to talk about how this fits into the national picture. We'll have a little conversation, then open it up to you. Sound good? All right, thank you. Linda, off to you.
Good morning. Thank you, Andy. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you very much to our gracious host today. We are, at the Department of Education, providing the first 13 years of preparation for the talent pipeline. So that's for not just some students, but all 1.4 million students here in New Jersey. And Andy asked, what is our purpose? And I don't think or what is our goal when we talk about career and technical education? And I don't think we can pose it as an either or. We have a student body now that is defined by diversity, and we need to recognize that. So when we talk about career pathways, we need to ensure that there are multiple entry and exit pathways on those career pathways for students, to ensure that students that need to be working as they leave high school have that opportunity, but that they don't get stuck there, that there are clearly marked exits to get back into higher education, to transition to industry-recognized credentials, to make sure that students that do get to college understand how those higher education credits articulate with the world of work. And that's not so easy, is it? It's not so clear when you're 15 or 16 years old what that looks like. So There are strategies that we're putting in place at the department, and when we talk about career and technical education, I'm looking out at a number of team members from the Office of Career Readiness. While the spotlight is on career and technical education right now, there have been people doing this work for a very long time here in the state of New Jersey. Some of the strategies that we are currently putting in place are leveraging the money that comes to us. We were talking earlier about Perkins and state dollars, and leveraging those for the purpose of innovation. So I'll give you a couple of examples of that. We recognize that while there's not an overall teacher shortage in New Jersey, career and technical education does experience a shortage. So leveraging dollars to help industry move ready and willing individuals into educational spots, and to help credentialed teachers transition into career and technical education spots. Leveraging dollars to help those comprehensive high schools that want to grow CTE seats, build programming that is complementary to the programming that's going on in their county vocational schools. And I think that's important to highlight. We really want to help leverage those models of best practice that exist here in the state, where there are programs at the county schools that are complementing and working collaboratively with the comprehensive schools in their county. We have opportunities to open seats up, as was noted earlier, if the bond issue goes through. We are keeping our fingers crossed because we think that's important dollars. Infrastructure is important, and building it costs money. There's no way around that. I think two other things that I'd like to highlight are governor initiatives. One is the apprenticeship network, which our commissioner will sit on, and we have work already underway and expanding at the Department of Education to help look at youth apprenticeships and what that might look like in New Jersey. Youth apprenticeship is a bit of a unique model. While we have plenty of work-based experiences going on for students all over the state in high schools, the youth apprenticeship model marries academics and higher education with high school education in a very unique way, so great opportunity. And the other thing that I think I would be remiss if I didn't highlight here is preschool expansion. You can't enter the world of work in a meaningful way if you can't read. So we want to recognize, applaud the governor's initiative, and cite that as the very beginning of career readiness.
That's terrific. Thank you. Mark, do you want to go next? Sure. Hear from the practitioners. What does it look like in the schools?
Well, first off, I'd like to echo what you said. I actually am living the CTE model. I am a graduate of Passaic County Votech. Was afforded the opportunity to go to college while I was working. I entered the workforce right from college, right from high school. So the model works. And when I came back to school as an educator, I started training automotive technology. The key here, though, is that we're developing lifelong learners, and we need to continue that. The ability to transition from a trade to college was seamless for me. And I think, to your point, you mentioned old CTE and new CTE. I don't think there is a difference. It's old CTE, as you coined the phrase, is really just higher technology now. It's more technological. It requires more skills, more academic skills. My school, Passaic County Tech, is a comprehensive and trade school, a technical school that has the ability to set both gears in motion. With that said, I've been able to come back as a trainer, and that's one shortcoming I see in the near future. We're going to have trouble gaining competent teachers. With the development, though, of furthering my education, I was able to get a school to career certificate, which is work-based learning. That is the most beneficial experience to students. Work-based learning, New Jersey coined it as structured learning experiences. Structured learning experiences start with shadowing. We expose students to industry. We bring them into the world of work. That, with partnerships, from organizations such as the Youth Transition to Work, the Department of Labor, New Jersey Department of Labor, sponsoring that youth transition to work, sponsoring the talent networks that identify what education needs, what education their qualified workforce would need. They come to us and offer or open the doors to industry. The internship incentive, that was a big hit this year. We took great initiative with that and put it forth to all our employers. At least a third of our employers took advantage of that. Guest speakers. Industry provides us with guest speakers and additional training, OSHA training or specific training that might be necessary for that specific technical area. Internships. We can place students in industry for a short period of time. Then, of course, cooperative education, where students go to work for a longer period of time, the year if necessary. You might start as a junior and work through to the end of their senior year. Organizations that provide realistic work experience for us are partners that we look for, we strive for. Junior Achievement of New Jersey. They provide industry connections, the youth transition to work, the talent networks. We have associations with NASA. Again, realistic work experience. How do we bring that back to the classroom or bring the students to the classroom? Most effective way to get CTE across to students and to the community. With that said, what I'd like to echo is one component of the New Jersey model is advisory committees. I've talked about state level, government level associations, but your local community is the biggest component. In Passaic County, we have a very strong network of industry business partners. The local business people that will come to the school, will offer training, will speak on what they are looking for in an employee, in a workforce. That is instrumental for our program to succeed. Again, I'm one component of the CTE model, the component that I'm most passionate about, because that's what we're trying to do, is set the wheels in motion for students to succeed in workforce, not just right after high school, but how to continue. Again, from pre-apprenticeship to apprenticeship, or right into a community college to a secondary school.
That's great, Phil. You can say whatever you want, but if you don't mind adding a little bit, building on this idea of how is it that the schools actually work and learn from industry, advisory groups, or do they sit on your board? How do we make that transition so seamless?
Absolutely, and I want to recognize that you did a great job presenting the picture of CTE throughout the state of New Jersey, because our schools are different. In fact, my school, Atlantic County Institute of Technology, is very similar to GCIT, but different from other schools throughout the state. And the advisory boards that we all have are integral to the operation of our school. We need those individuals in a number of ways, and primarily, of course, they inform us about what are the trends in industry, what do we need to teach our students, and where do they see their career areas going in the future. And I'll give you an example from my school. We have about 1,500 students at my school. We're a comprehensive career and technical high school. We do all of the academics as well as the career and technical programs. We are in Atlantic County. Atlantic County has fallen on some hard times with casino closures and a county government that is looking to diversify our county economy so that students who are in the pipeline now for careers would have the opportunity to have a sustainable future in the county. With that said, one area that we looked at, because it's very dominated by tourism, was aviation. So the county actually working with an economic development plan and working with us, we are doing an aviation program. We were able to shift gears to start an aviation program in cooperation with our community college that will have students going through that pipeline who will be able to take advantage of what the county is doing right now to create career opportunities at the William Hughes Technical Center, which is one of the national aviation research areas, which is located in our county. So every county school is different. With 1,500 students, we have a very diverse student population. We are about 61% free and reduced lunch, which kind of speaks to our socioeconomic situation in Atlantic County. But with that said, our students are held to a higher standard because we're asking them to complete both a career and technical program, which is a 4-year program. It's very intense. It takes a lot of time, but at the same time, we know that our students are very engaged in that work because they enjoy doing it. And our applications show we have about 1,000 applications for about 450 seats in our freshman class. Our students, with those standards in place, our graduation rate usually is around 98 to 99% of our students are graduating from high school in a 4-year time frame with a greater number of credits than they would receive in a traditional high school. So I think what we're seeing, and especially in a county that is on the rebound, we are coming back. The casino industry is doing better, but we are diversifying our economy and looking for opportunities for young people. Parents are very focused now on making sure that their students are looking at a career path. They want to look toward the future and say that my son or daughter will be able to live in this county and will be able to have a future that economically they and their family will be okay into the future. So I think we're seeing that focus from parents, which is increasing our applicant pool each and every year.
I think that's such a great point. There's some recent research out showing that over the past couple years, there's a decreasing percentage of families that believe that a 4-year college investment is always a good return on investment. So a lot of these families across the nation are asking themselves, how do I prepare my students, if they're not going to go to a 4-year college, to get a job immediately? So two things I want to come back to are this idea of wait lists, which I think a lot of people, certainly outside this room, don't know is how popular these programs are, and you can't serve all the kids that you would like to. But then also, it's not as though the programs that you have up and running in 1985 are the same in 1995 or 2005 or 2015. You actually have a process for bringing new programs online and sunsetting the ones that aren't as popular. So this is a real life example of trying to be as nimble and meet the needs of the industry as opposed to just saying, this is what we're doing, take it or leave it. Okay, Kate Kramer. Thank you again for being with us. A leader of a national organization who looks across the 50 states and Washington, D.C. So put this all in context for us, if you don't mind.
Sure. So, Andy said earlier, or Tamar said earlier, that it's a great time for CTE, right? And we often say at the office, everybody loves CTE. And that is true. You look across the country, I'll give 2 examples of how that plays out. So we, every year, put out an annual report tracking how many state policies are being passed that are impacting CTE, looking at state legislatures, state boards of education, executive orders, regulatory policy, all of it. We started doing this about 5 years ago, about 130 policies back in 2013, pretty high. 2017, the number was 241 policies across 50 states. And I don't think that's slowing down. We've just seen it continue to accelerate year after year. You look at state of state addresses from governors, CTE continuously is one of the top issues along with workforce development. Another example is looking at the Every Student Succeeds Act, which is the reauthorization of many No Child Left Behind. It was passed into law in 2015. States are finalizing their plans. All but 8 have been approved by the Department of Education. We've tracked those, looking at them, and 49 states have included some strategy that addresses career readiness. 35 states have put measures of career readiness in their accountability system. So when you think about the change of behaviors and incentives at the school and district level to start valuing career readiness and career readiness outcomes such as participation or completion of a CT pathway, earning an industry credential, completing a youth apprenticeship on the same par as earning a 3 on an AP or dual enrollment, which actually cuts both ways. That's a huge shift and about doubles the number before states submitted their ESSA plans to actually start valuing career readiness within those accountability systems. I will have to say, as we think about what comes next, New Jersey is not one of those 35 states. That being said, New Jersey does have a number of career readiness indicators on their report card, having some transparency indicators, but as we think about potential opportunities, that is one. However, we think about the behaviors and the changes, that is something that New Jersey is really excelling at, right? The behaviors are there, the incentives are there. Parents, students, community leaders, educators are seeing the value of CTE clearly. If you have, 17,000, 20,000, whatever the number is, of students that are trying to get into your vocational county schools and cannot because of capacity, you've already changed and flipped the script. Certainly one of the pervasive challenges we have within the CT community nationally is the stigma. Many people still look at CT and remember when they were in high school. And I'm going to paraphrase something that somebody recently said, which CT used to do one thing really well, right? It used to prepare students for jobs. It used to be a terminal program that you could go directly in the workforce. We now need CTE, to the point earlier, to do everything, right? We need it to provide all those opportunities and really help students find their passion, their interest, and then make sure that they have full choice, right? It's not just the choice within what school you go to, but choice of how you use those skills, whether you want to enter directly into the workforce, or as many students do, enter the workforce, but also pay while they're continuing on their education, whether that's a 2-year, 4-year, or some other form. So the stigma, coming back to the stigma, still is a huge challenge in many communities where people think of that as that voc ed when they were in high school. It's interesting that New Jersey has addressed that stigma issue in so many ways and still uses vocational education, which is not a term that many other states want to use because it has that negative association. So how did New Jersey do it? One is the focus on quality, which I think is where most states are really pushing, making sure that you have the highest quality programs that are meeting industry needs, but also having those processes led by the state to actually review your programs, make sure what you're approving actually is high quality and not just industry aligned, but also quality standards, quality curriculum, intentional sequence of courses that does provide that full range of opportunities. And then having the review process to actually look at those programs and not let them sit on the shelf. Something that I think the state has done a very intentional job about continuing doing. I think it also, to the point made earlier, is there's no end point, right? The goal line keeps moving. There's always improvement because the economy is always changing, the needs of students are always changing, and so being the balance of being nimble and responsive, but also making sure that you're continuing to put those students first. So I think the last point I will make in terms of kind of the national perspective, the other side of quality, the kind of companion is always going to be equity and access. And something that states are grappling with right now, right? And I think the tension you put up there is the core tension, right? In terms of, are these programs for students who will benefit from the most, or are they for everyone? I argue they're for everyone, but that does mean you still have to have intentionality about making sure that those who will benefit the most are having the supports they need to make sure they not only have access to those programs and you have the right seats, and looking at those criteria and making sure that you're creating the right opportunities and having a fair system, but then not just, equity is not just about access to a program, but also the supports needed to have success through the program along the way, addressing those barriers that was mentioned earlier by the commissioner, and being very intentional about the policy level, at the practice level, that you're really creating the right environment, the right supports for both the students, their parents, and the broader community. So these are the, a lot of the tensions put up. I think in some ways New Jersey's in a slightly different point, but they're confronting, I think, the same challenges that really every state is rightfully grappling with, to make sure that we're not just creating more opportunities and more CT, but good CT, solid CTE that really can and should meet all those disparate but equally important needs.
That's great. So I want to open up to all of you in just 1 second. So if you have a question, start to think about it, and we'll get a microphone to you. But what I'd like to ask all of you, whatever kind of reaction you have, is I've been a state policymaker now in my second state, and for better or for worse, often I think about how do we assess whether some network of schools is doing well? That always falls on the rocks of, well, what does well actually mean? What are the metrics we're going to use? So I could imagine some people looked at the test scores I put up there, and some people probably said, oh, a great school is one where the vast majority of kids have high proficiency rates or high PSAT scores. Another case could be made, no, this school could be successful because it's finding kids who aren't scoring so well and it's getting them ready for the workforce. It could be the case that these test scores or PSAT scores or whatever else don't really get at what we care about. What we care about is, are families happy? And that could be revealed by long waiting lists. It could be the case you have lousy test scores and waiting lists aren't all that long, but industry in the area absolutely loves the products of the school. So there's some policymakers who are watching this. So they're always going to be asking, is it a good return on investment? How should they be assessing what a successful school is and is not? Any thoughts on this?
I'll take a shot at that. So prior to coming to work for the Department of Education, I was the principal of a career and technical education school called Biotechnology High School. And like one of the schools that Andy put up there, very high SAT scores created by the admissions policy. We didn't measure our success on the PSAT scores or the SAT scores. Those were expected. Our successes were different places. So the percentage of students that articulated with college degrees in the area of majors, so STEM majors, were a point of pride for us. Students who came from less academically strong preparatory backgrounds who got through the program, earned college credits in the program. It was an international baccalaureate program. Students had the opportunity to walk away with upwards of 24 credits. Those students walking away with those credits was huge. So I think, again, we need to be mission-driven. We need to look at what is the purpose of what we're doing and then work backwards from that. There are going to be opportunities to measure differently, not only within an individual program, but for individual students.
Anyone else thoughts about this?
Well, sure, I'll give it. I mean, I obviously agree with all that. I don't think there's, and this relates to this issue of how do you measure career readiness, and the truth is there's no one measure for career readiness, right? It does encompass all of the above. It has academic, technical, and employability professional skills, and so I think if we're looking at the success of a school that is ensuring students are career ready and college ready, I mean, I don't think we should be distinguishing those two. We need every student to be college and career ready, and so I think we need to be looking at the academic. We have, of course, the academic achievement. We have to look at the technical skills, whether that's earning industry credentials that are of value.
Yep.
And I know creating a statewide process to make sure that those credentials are of value is critically important. But as well as I think those professional skills, which are best measured through work-based learning. So I think it's a mix of what opportunities and participation are students having in those different experiences, and making sure that they're equitable. I'm going to come back to that, right? Not certain students, but kind of there's a lot of ways you can be gaming the system, but really making sure you're looking at all students. And you have to look at all those in totality to really understand if a school is. So we actually do an annual awards program for a high quality program study. Passaic County is one of our winners. Bergen County was one of our winners. We've had a long history of New Jersey schools, our new programs, and we're looking at all of those, right? We're absolutely looking at academics. We're absolutely looking at industry credentials and work-based learning. And of course, we're looking at the transitions, both directly into post-secondary and into the workforce. And if those indicators aren't there, then we know they're not meeting the full needs of the students.
Yeah, for the two practitioners, like when you are talking to your board or the county leaders and they got to make tough budget decisions, do we give some money to medical care or the school or transportation or the school? How do you make the value proposition to them? We are succeeding.
I think all the metrics that were discussed are important. And as a comprehensive school that serves a diverse student population, there are individual goals for students as well. So one student's goal may be as a cosmetology student to go directly into the workforce and to be connected with that salon and start his or her career right away. We have other students who are very high achievers who are looking at going to a four-year institution, hopefully staying focused in that career area. And we measure that, as Linda said, as a success as well. So it varies by student, but overall, I think we look at the success that the student has. Have they graduated high school on time? Have they received those industry credentials? Are they ready? Do they have a set of skills that are marketable right away? And as was said earlier, some students do both. They go to work and go to school, and we've seen many students over the years actually be able to pay their way through school with the skills that they learned in high school and are able to continue in that career area. So it's not a simple answer, and it's not something that can be reduced to a report card all the time. It is somewhat individual, and I think that's a trend that all schools are looking at. What are the individual successes for the students we serve?
You have thoughts?
I have to agree with everything. I think it is a balance, but just to touch on industry, I mean, there has to be a return on investment. If they're going to commit to assisting in training a future workforce, they want to see a result. And, aside from that, yeah. I agree with everything that was said. I mean, the metrics has to be at least the four areas that you talked about.
That's great. All right, are there questions from you folks? I have a million more, so I'm happy to keep talking, but it's ultimately for your edification. Okay, as you can, Tamar? Great.
So I want to press your original question a little bit. You know, are there some trade-offs? And do we have to think about, when we say purpose is all of the above, is that realistic?
Yeah.
And I think that came up in the metric. I mean, obviously purpose is tied to metrics. You said what metrics, and now we have a list. If we put all of you together, we probably have a list of 30 metrics. Is there a point where there are trade-offs and there are choices? I mean, obviously we all believe that new CTE should be getting kids ready for college and career. And we obviously want to serve middle-class kids and disadvantaged kids, but are there trade-offs? And I mean, the only real answer I heard to that is the individual goals. And I just wonder if anyone else wants to speak to trade-offs, and it's hard to do, you can't do it all.
Yeah, if I can
garden party.
No, that's great. I mean, if I can pile on a little bit more, because I think some of our policymakers in other places will be thinking about this, because for better or for worse, state policymakers have to have a state report card under the federal law and for state purposes, and they have to be able to either give schools an A through F or put them in some sort of rank order. So they need some sort of indicators. And rather than they're constantly doing this for us, I've been trying to say, if we got to define for ourselves what a great school looks like in some measurable set of indicators, what should we be looking at, but emphatically, what should we not be looking at too? It's an exercise we might not like, this accountability system, the empiricism of it, but we got to deal with it. Any thoughts?
So I think that New Jersey has been uniquely successful with local control. And I think that there's not one definition of what a good school looks like. When you look across the state of New Jersey, we range from tiny K-8 districts to regional high school districts comprised of 6 very large high schools, and then the county vocational districts sit within and outside of that system. And so I think that we have had tremendous success here in New Jersey. And I think that continuing to incubate those good programs, to share best practices, to leverage resources, I think that shared services and collaborative partnerships is going to be critical in the years moving ahead. So I don't know, Andy, that there's one good answer to what does a good school look like. But I will say good leadership is critical.
I mean, of course there's trade-offs. There's always going to be trade-offs, particularly when you're looking at programs and schools that are more expensive to run,
Yep.
particularly when you're looking at, I think, which is less the case in New Jersey, but many states that have kind of regional CTE schools, they're part-time, kind of shared time, so students have to choose the trade-off between staying in your home high school or leaving half the day and missing maybe sports and missing extra, right, which is a challenge. We've done some polling, and students that are in CTE and parents don't miss, they kind of recognize all the opportunities, so they kind of, but it's a barrier, I think, in some cases. But I think the trade-off, and another trade-off, I think, is a fundamental one, attention, when we think about employers. And again, we're talking about secondary CT, but when you have sometimes business partners and advisory members who are saying, I need someone now, just give me somebody now who will show up on time, I'll train them, versus an employer who can look down the field 10 years and say, we think we want to build out aviation and work with economic development and think about what's moving and what's that lifelong learning. And that's a tension that I think we struggle with in terms of how do you have the short-term responsiveness to your employers, who obviously are a critical component, versus how do you make sure that at the end of the day, this is an education program and we have to focus on students' education in addition to keeping, I mean, for me, we want to leave all doors open. We don't want to be shutting any doors. So I think that in itself can be a trade-off, can be a challenge, but I think that is what we have to keep in mind as we're focusing kind of on the secondary and then creating all those pathways into the 2-year, the 4-year industry apprenticeship and so on.
And all of those opportunities are so important, and I can see over the years where we've had students who have been involved in the short-term employment, but then have also progressed and went on and now are college graduates and are back serving in that industry. So it's both, and it's so important. especially in an area like Atlantic County where we have a seasonal economy as well. So there are a lot of opportunities for students to get work experience and to serve that community during that time, and our employers are very happy that the students have the skills coming in to be able to work with them, especially in culinary and those areas. But the trade-offs, I think, are changing as more schools are going comprehensive. We at one time were a shared time school, and it was getting almost impossible to do the shared time programs with the state testing requirements, the amount of time that students were spending doing travel. So I think that transition throughout New Jersey has been made by many districts, if not all at this point, and it is something that is that students identify now with a school. So we're able to, as a comprehensive school, students do not have to trade off some of the things, the experiences that they would have in a regular high school. They are able to have those experiences in a county technical school as well.
One thing I would say is, again, a policymaker trying to work this out like in numbers, it's just striking to me that across the state just how long the wait lists are, and the fact that the graph that I showed you earlier, if counties are putting in about 40 cents on the dollar of the ultimate amount, those are two really remarkable indicators, right? The county government likes it so much they want to put a big part of their limited budget into these schools, and families like them so much they're signing up for them. And I just wish that we could get that message across clear and embed that in an accountability system, but we just don't really do that yet. As a matter of fact, if there's anyone who works for a county government or industry in the audience who wants to weigh in on this, would love to hear your voice, because these schools are meant to help counties and business leaders too. If not, are there any other questions? Yes, please, in the back.
Hi, I'm Jonathan Pushman with the New Jersey School Boards Association. We're an organization that represents the interests of both the county vocational schools and traditional school districts. And in your presentation, you talked a bit about the tension and friction that occasionally exists between the traditionals and the county-based programs. I'd love to hear from the panelists, what their personal experiences have been in trying to address that tension and friction, and then moving forward, how the traditionals and VOTECs can maybe collaborate better with one another, for the best interests of all students.
Just a point of clarification on my part, are their boards members of your organization, or do they have a separate one?
The School Boards Association represents both county-based and traditional school districts, and obviously the Council of County Vocational Schools represents just the 21 county-based
That's
programs.
right. Okay, so they do have their separate advocacy organization. Okay,
Exactly.
Yeah, I would love your thoughts on this.
I could start with, we actually have two CTE programs in comprehensive high schools. Recently, we received a grant to seek schools that would be willing to put a CTE program in their comprehensive high schools. So currently, we started a new aerospace program with Passaic High School, and we're the lead agency, and we help them and support their efforts in career and technical education. The second round, that was 1 year, we're in 2 years with that grant. The second year, which we started another grant with them, in that application process, we had 5 districts interested. We come from, 16 districts that send to our Passaic County, 58 schools, only 5 high schools looked to have interest in that. Passaic was one of them, and they won the agreement. The second one was just Passaic was interested, and we're starting a IT program with them. But again, the collaboration is some of our resources, some of the things that work for us, we're bringing to that table. Somebody from each department, myself included, is part of the team that went in to try to help that get off the ground.
One of the things I would add is that the county vocational schools were set up as a shared service model. So we have certain equipment and technology that would be very difficult to replicate in many schools because of the expense and the size requirements for the technical labs and shops.
Yep.
So as a shared service, it works very well. It wouldn't make much sense for a number of schools to have an automotive program because of the equipment and the size and the training of the teachers that is necessary. So can those models work? Absolutely. But one of the things that we struggle with is the schedule flexible enough in a traditional high school to allow for the quality of the program to be the same as the quality of the program that would be operated in the vocational school district. So there are programs out there and there are models that do work, and I think all of us are open to working with other schools, but some of those issues have to be looked at in terms of flexibility of schedule and how students would actually work within the other function of the school, which sometimes is not as easy to do.
Any other thoughts?
Just, I think there's great opportunity for the collaborative models, like were highlighted, and I think training teachers, cross-pollinating some of the skills that come out of these very specialized county schools for sharing some of the project-based learning models and other things that help engage our students who choose to stay in comprehensive high schools but still need the employability skills that the county vocationals are so good at building in their students, helping comprehensive high schools understand how to build advisory boards. Some of the programs that are maybe not as skill intensive or labor intensive but still help prepare students to understand what the world of work looks like and to help them with the models of structured-based learning, how to partner with industry. I think there's just a lot of opportunity for the expertise that has pollinated in our county vocational districts to be shared with our comprehensive high schools so that all students leave high school with employability skills and ready for career pathways.
This point about the shared services is worth underscoring, especially for people who don't know New Jersey. I think New Jersey has about 590 school districts. By comparison, Maryland has about the same amount of kids, a little bit less statewide, but has only 24 school districts. So your districts here are really, really small. Hence, you could see if you want an expensive high school, you got to do shared services. You have to do it across, and that causes some tension. So people in other places should probably think about this. If we have big school districts, maybe even county-based, we can do it one way, but if we have, like, I think Ohio probably has 700, 800, 900 school districts, the way they approach this probably has to be a little bit different as well. Like, governance and operations actually turns out to be a big piece of this puzzle. Other questions? Oh, yes, please. Welcome.
Thank you. My name is Christopher Kobick. I'm superintendent of Lower Cape Bay Regional School District. We're a comprehensive high school district. We're not a vocational school district, vocational technical school district in the very southern reaches of New Jersey. Sometimes I really wonder, is it New Jersey at all? We're so fortunate to have the leadership of our county vocational school, Dr. Gunther up at ACIT in Atlantic County, and the relationship that we've been able to develop through actually a South Jersey Regional Superintendents Association that includes comprehensive high schools at the table with those vocational schools, talking about issues in a micro level, the same of which you're talking about today. The leadership of our vocational schools in developing high quality CTE programs stimulated me some 20 years ago to begin developing those kinds of programs in our comprehensive high school. I've worked hand in hand with Dr. Hudanik over the years to not be too replicable, but for us to complement each other and to meet local industry needs. For example, being in a tourist area, we both have hospitality, specifically culinary programs of study. So not just partnerships, not just shared service agreements, but ongoing communication and being at the table. There are 110 school districts in the state of New Jersey that have comprehensive high schools that have successful CTE programs. We have a voice, and I think we can be important players in pushing and advancing CTE for all students. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well said.
Any responses, questions?
Well said.
Well said. Yeah. Okay, I think we probably have time for 1.5 more, 2 if you go quickly. Thank you. Welcome.
Thanks. I'll ask a half question then. My question is, what we hear from folks around different states is a shortage of CTE teachers, or difficulty in getting and then retaining CTE teachers, especially in rural areas, to allow for diversity of programming. So can you speak a little bit to how New Jersey is facing that issue?
Great question. Thank you so much. That's the million-dollar question, right?
So I think we both came through New Jersey pathway for teachers coming out of industry and into education, and that's alternate route. This is a pathway that's been in place for quite a while. It allows individuals with industry certification and enough academic preparation to make the transition to the classroom. We've really strengthened that program, and right now the department has a grant model where it's helping bridge the pathway both from industry into the classroom and from already sitting certified teachers to CTE. So those are two ways we're doing it. We're also helping CTE programs to take a part of that alternate route back home to reduce the burden on teachers. So as they're making the transition, to reduce the amount of time that they're spending on the road and the cost to them, helping career and tech ed districts build their own capacity to help deliver some part of that alternate route.
Just two quick things. So one on the New Jersey, and actually I think there's a planning meeting happening right now for the grant you have from Octay on teacher pipeline, because we're fortunate.
Hard to be everywhere.
Fortunate to work with you all on that. But what was great about what New Jersey did in anticipation of applying for this Octay grant was they actually looked at their data, right? They actually looked at what's our challenge of our teacher shortage, where are our shortage areas, because often it's a squeaky wheel. You hear, we have a shortage, Is it one district? Is it one content area? Is it really statewide? And so they did, I think, the right work of actually understanding where their shortages were, and then forecasted and saw, we have a big retirement coming in the next 10, 15 years, and here's our highest need area, and then can target the policies and programs and supports and recruitment. So that's, I think, huge, and where many states are still struggling because it's hard data, it's hard to have those kind of dig into it, but really critical to understand the scope of the challenge. And then I think what other states have done, because this is obviously a huge challenge across the board, one is, and I think it's great being on a co-located secondary, post-secondary, is that what we're seeing in some states, they're sharing faculty, kind of creating opportunities, whether through dual enrollment, but not necessarily through dual enrollment, right, to actually think about how to build capacity and use that as a way to kind of free up capacity for those teachers. We're definitely seeing many look at about how do you create the shortcuts for industry experts through part-time, co-teaching. Maybe you're not ready to leave your job full-time, but is there a way that you can get your foot in the door, and then maybe in a year you'll say this is for me, and if not, you've still built capacity within that school. And then certainly looking at not just alternative certification, because pretty much every single state has alternative certification. It's not getting the job done since it's been around for a while, but how are you being intentional about dual certifying teachers, thinking about whether they're being able to teach both academic and CT or multiple CT areas, and being a little bit more strategic about that certification piece beyond just getting them in the pipeline, but thinking about what are they actually certified to teach and whether that's being deployed strategically.
Great. Let's do one more question, and then I'll give all the panelists the opportunity to have say their final piece on this. Oh, over there. Thank you.
I work in juvenile corrections, and I'm a cooperative ed coordinator, but I wind up doing a lot of career counseling. And I'm going to direct this to, is it Mr. Gunther or Dr. Gunther? Phil, okay. I'm just saying this because I went onto your website yesterday looking to see what you had for adult learners. The reason I say that is most of our kids, our clients, when they leave us, either have a GED, a high school diploma, or they're so advanced in the years that they can't get into that competitive program that usually starts in 9th grade. When I looked on your website, I saw that there were apprenticeships. Now, my assumption has been that they had to go get a job and then come to you and say, will you do an apprenticeship? But has there ever been that close a connection between you and the industries around you that they can all be done in one spot? In other words, the kid could be hired there and sign up for the apprenticeship at the same time.
Yes, that does exist. In fact, the county apprenticeship coordinator is actually one of our employees. So she is able to, because she has quite a network throughout our county, that could exist where she could point a young person who may come in and take a class, let's say in HVAC or plumbing, to an employer who she has worked with in the past and maybe get that process going. Adult vocational or career and technical programs, it's a group that we serve, and it's a great use of our facilities because most of us do it after the high school program has ended. So we are able to, in our case, 4 nights a week, we're operating until 10 o'clock at night with adults who are coming back and taking those career and technical classes. There are some challenges, though. And one of the challenges that we face is that the students do receive some funding through the Workforce Development Board and some of the training dollars that are out there. But in our case, we don't offer financial aid. So we're working with the colleges now to see if we can put those two together, working with the adult population because the colleges have the ability to do a much better job with financial aid than we do at the county vocational school level. But yes, the apprenticeship piece is one that most of our schools are involved in very heavily, and the county apprenticeship coordinator is one of our employees.
Okay, I like to leave on a very happy note if we can, so this is what I want to do. Just go down the line, start with you, Mark. You can either tell us something that you're really excited, really proud about, whether with your school or with this sector of schools, and or add something about if we did 1 or 2 things, the future is even brighter. So end us on a happy note here.
Bringing it back to what do we do next? I think what I'd like to see is, listening to some of the ideas about dual training or dual certification for industry and entering the high school. I'd like to look to industry and say, listen, if for CTE to survive and to get better and stronger, it seems to be cyclical. When things are good and they need employees, they're knocking at our door. But when times are bad, they kind of walk away from training. This training model has to exist no matter the times. We have to continue it, and we need the support of industry for the changing times, to prepare for the future, to see where we're headed and what is needed in our community. So, I look to the industry and say, we need your input and to continue that input.
Great, thank you. Linda.
I think it's a uniquely well-articulated time for CTE. I think from the federal government through our new governor and our acting commissioner, there is a real commitment to a stronger, fairer New Jersey. And I think it's a great opportunity, and I'm really excited for the department to be a part of that.
That's great. Kate?
Well, so Linda mentioned pre-K and early education, but I do think there's really exciting conversations about how do we move CT back, how do we move it into middle schools, move it into elementary schools, and not necessarily all the technical piece, but how do we actually get more career exploration, awareness, which if we are going to make this a program that every student and parent wants for their kids, the only way to do that is to make them actually aware of what their opportunities are and get them excited about the value. I mean, there is just, CT is just, it's much more engaging, it's much more fun. The graduation rate is 10% a point higher across nationally, right, for these students that are in CTE. But people don't know about it. And so how do we make sure that they have the opportunity to understand what CTE is, but also just what careers are available to them and what the world of work looks like at a much earlier age. And I think the conversation is shifting that way, and I think that will pay off hugely in the future.
That's great. Phil, bring us home.
I'm excited about all of those things, but it's specifically in New Jersey, I'm very excited about the Bond Act that would provide some additional opportunities for students to take advantage of CTE throughout the entire state. We know the demand is there. We feel that more students would benefit from being involved in CTE, and we also look at it as an economic development driver for, I know in my county and throughout the state of New Jersey in terms of workforce development. So that's an exciting time for CTE right now in New Jersey.
Thank you so much. Okay, 2 quick housekeeping notes. We're about to take a break right now. If I could ask all of you to be back here, please, in your seats, ready to start the next thing at 11:25. So that gives you 20 minutes on the nose. And the second thing, if you don't mind, please join me in thanking this wonderful panel. Great discussion. Thank you to all of you. All right, we're back with Tamar leading a conversation in 20 minutes. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. In case anyone's just arrived or just turned on their TV, I'm Tamar Jacoby from Opportunity America, president of Opportunity America, a Washington, D.C. policy shop. And I'm here with someone the New Jersey, everyone in the New Jersey audience will know, Aaron Fichtner. He's already had a round of applause from the podium and the audience. For those of you who don't know, in the ether watching on TV, Aaron is the former commissioner of the New Jersey Department of Labor and Workforce Development and the current president of the New Jersey Council of County Colleges. And again, a footnote for those people watching on TV, county colleges, maybe that's not a familiar term, it's essentially community colleges, right? It's 2-year public post-secondary institutions. So, Aaron, it's really a pleasure to be here with you.
Great, thank you. It's great to be here, and thank you for putting this amazing conference and gathering together.
Thank you. So let's start again with a little bit of level set so we can bring this audience and the people who aren't from New Jersey onto the same page. Tell us a little bit how New Jersey county, I'm going to discipline myself to say county all the way through, county colleges, it won't work, have stepped up in recent years. You know, if you look 10 years, I don't know if it's 10 years ago was the before or 15 years ago, but the before and after, what happened and how did it work?
So thank you, and a little bit of background. We are the Council of County Colleges, and that's really an historical, what's the right word? It's a historical fact, but they are community colleges, and many of them have the name community in their title, though that differs from one college to the other. We have 19 community colleges across New Jersey, and they are independent autonomous entities. They're funded largely by tuition, but also by county expenditures and state expenditures. In about 25 years ago, the Council of County Colleges was created by state law, so we have some statutory responsibilities to coordinate the work. And we've created a model of coordinated autonomy where the colleges work together on things that are important for collaboration, but they also retain their independence. So we have an interesting model here in New Jersey that has worked well. These colleges, many of them are celebrating their 50th anniversaries, so it's an exciting time in community colleges. And they started mostly, as most community colleges, as 2-year institutions working on transferring people to 4-year institutions. But in the mid-2000s, I think there was really a realization that the workforce was really important, that the role that the colleges were playing and needed to play in helping prepare a skilled workforce and open up economic opportunities to residents was really important. So in 2004, the colleges got together and said, are we going to compete or are we going to collaborate? And they decided we're going to collaborate. So they created, as an initiative of the council, the Consortium for Workforce and Economic Development. And Ann Barr, I think, is on the panel next, and he'll talk more about that. But that really was a mechanism to allow the colleges to collaborate, to have a single point of contact to state government around workforce development initiatives, more importantly, a single point of contact to the business community. And that consortium has trained well over 120,000 people, has received large amounts of federal and state funding and grants, and done a lot of innovative work from advanced manufacturing to healthcare, and really helping the colleges advance their workforce initiatives.
Well, it's still part of this question, dig in a little, because when I talk about New Jersey and other states, I actually talk about how the state kind of played matchmaker between the county colleges and the business association by providing this curriculum that then all the colleges could use and businesses could come take advantage of. You know, it's like the state was the matchmaker and then the relationships blossomed. Is that wrong? And tell us how that worked.
Well, I mean, I think the great example example, and I'm sure Anbar will talk about this, is our work in advanced manufacturing. We have a great long-standing partnership between the colleges and NJBIA, the Business and Industry Association. And through conversations, it was pretty clear that there was a need for folks to be trained to work in manufacturing. And it was really that partnership that led to the development of curriculum influenced by employers, funded by the state, that led to really the solidification of this model of really employer-driven curriculum development and decision-making. And we're very proud of many of our colleges are involved in providing NIM certification training and helping to really meet a very important gap in our workforce preparation system.
And again, when I sort of do the 60,000-foot takeaway, it's a little state money, but then it gets a ball rolling that is a partnership that continues.
That's correct, and those investments have been really critically important to get the ball moving. And the idea is that those innovations then have lasting impacts on the colleges. Colleges have relationships with employers, they have curriculum, they have capacity, they have faculty and instructors who are now well able to do that. And so yes, that small amount of state funding or federal funding in some cases really has an important impact.
Okay, so next question, next steps. How are we going to build on, now in your new job, how are you going to build on this? What's the plan?
I'm on week 14 in my job, so I'll start with that. But it's an incredibly exciting time in community colleges. Our community colleges enroll 340,000 people every year. About half of them are in credit programs, but the other half are in non-credit programs or are incumbent workers. So we have this in tremendous capacity throughout our entire state. Most businesses and most individuals in New Jersey live fairly close to a community college facility. So we're blessed to have that. And really, we have committed as 19 community colleges to being strong partners in meeting the state's attainment goal. We want to make sure that 65% of our adults have an industry-valued credential or degree. And I think the credential part is equally as important. And so we are working as a council to have the conversations about what are the things that we need to do to make sure that we're meeting that. How do we build on the work of the consortium to make sure that our colleges are well positioned to train people with industry-valued credentials and degrees to be on that path to further education or a career?
And what are some of those hows? I mean, or is it too soon to ask to test you on the hows?
Well, I think,
I'm a former journalist. I can't help.
Well, I am on week 14, so, I think that we have a lot of things to build on. So, for example, there are a lot of great partnerships, and it's great that we're here at the Gloucester Institute of Technology. The partnership between Rowan College at Gloucester and this institution is really an important one. And so I think that is really an important priority for all of our colleges, is to strengthen those relationships, because there is so much common ground between the vocational technical high schools and the community colleges, and to continue to find ways to share curriculum when it's appropriate, to share facilities when it's appropriate. We have a number of examples where community colleges and vocational schools are sharing training facilities. We hope that that will continue. Because as you all know, it's often expensive to build a training facility to train people for careers, whether it's advanced manufacturing or healthcare. And so I think that's a key area of opportunity that we want to continue to build on. The partnerships with the four-year institutions are equally important, because we want to make sure that we're building those career pathways so that there's no dead end, that you can get that stackable credential and move up. So we've got a lot of great partnerships with the four-year institutions. I know we'll hear probably in the next panel about the partnerships here in Gloucester between Rowan College at Gloucester and Rowan University and the vocational schools. The idea of creating that seamless pathway where people can get on and off at different stages and really be able to take advantage of learn and earn models, apprenticeship models. So there's a lot of great things to build on, and I think we are at an exciting time with a new administration and with a realization across the 19 community colleges that we are committed to meeting this goal of 65 by 25 and making sure that we have a skilled workforce ready to meet the demands of the future.
So let's dig in a little bit to those non-credit students. I'm really interested in the non-credit students. And I had not heard the number half. That's really fascinating. And just for this, but again, I'll do kind of the primer version. Easier for the non-credit division to work with the businesses and get a program up and nimble and running and that meets the needs of businesses. They don't have to wait for the faculty committee. They don't have to wait for the accreditors. Right. They can be the business partner in often in an easier way. okay, but then the problem is, what do those kids do later, or those students? Do they can they turn that into account, so to speak, literally credit, when they want to go on? So how are you wrestling with this?
Well, this is a big issue. It's a big challenge, and we're probably not going to solve it overnight because of the issues that you raised. We are focused on industry-valued credentials. So the state labor department has created a list of about 200 credentials with input from employers and labor market analysis that have value, they believe have value in the labor market. So we're going to be using that list. And I think when you start making sure that your non-credit programs, when possible, lead to an industry-valued credential, then that's a portable accomplishment.
Yeah.
And so the idea then is, while they may not get credit while they're in that program, if they come back to the community college and want to enroll in an associate's degree program, there's an opportunity for the college to decide to award credit for that credential. And we have a couple of examples where that's going on very well. At Camden County College, they've been doing great work around the NIMS certificate in advanced manufacturing. They've been a great leader. I know President Borden is here in that area. And the idea that there is an opportunity, that there isn't a dead end on the non-credit side. Now, we've got a diverse set of students, and I think that's one of the great accomplishments of community colleges, is the incredible diversity. We have great students who are coming out of high school who are going to go to four-year institutions. We've got folks that are changing careers. We've got all sorts of different diverse, and so we need to make sure that we're continuing to build those diverse pathways. There's no dead end.
Well, again, little follow-up on this, little follow-up on the industry credentials. So you get the industry credential and you go back, I got my industry credential and I worked for a while, now I'm coming back to community college. Does it have to be left entirely to the college to decide whether they want to give any credit for that? Is there a way for the state? I know in some other states, they figured out ways to help make that articulation more uniform across the state for the industry credentials. Is New Jersey thinking about that? Is that a good way to go?
I think that would be great to get to that point. So this is an area where we have a system of high degree of autonomy in our higher education institutions. We have a Secretary of Higher Education who is a great leader and visionary individual to help to bring the sector together. But these are the kind of discussions that need to happen, so that there isn't, so that you're right, if you get a NIM certificate at Camden County College and you move to Sussex, are they going to accept your credits the same way that Camden would? And these are discussions that we all,
or something else.
Yeah, exactly. And so this is, I think, the next set of discussions that we need to have, working with the state government, working with the Secretary of Higher Education and her office to see how we address that issue.
Okay, so I think we're running out of time, but let's try to fit one more question in. The workforce system. So, you ask most congressmen, how do we pay for career education? They'd say, the workforce system. And, the number I always love is 175,000 people get trained in the workforce system nationally every year, and 12 million people go through community colleges.
Right.
Where is career education happening in America? Both places, obviously. But so community colleges and the one-stops and the workforce, the WIOA boards? Do we have, is there better synergy there instead of two kind of duplicative systems? Can we get some synergy?
100% agree with you, and we have a lot of really good models where the local workforce development boards are working very closely with the community colleges
and what do they
vocational
do? What are the
schools.
rules? What are the roles? What are they, if you can give.
Well, I think it's different in every case. I mean, one thing that we have done over the time is to work to make sure that we have one-stop career centers that are co-located on college campuses. That doesn't happen everywhere and can't happen everywhere. But then if you have the workforce board heavily engaged on the college campus, then you have a lot of other conversations and a lot of collaborative efforts, whether it's about remedial education, adult basic education, which our colleges do a tremendous amount of work. And the workforce system funds that. Many of our colleges are involved in the Title II program in WIOA. So I think having that space does matter. I mean, obviously everything can be virtual in this world, and people can watch us from Montana. But I think being in the same geography is really important. And so I think there's an opportunity for more collaboration. You raise a really important point, which is that much of our financial aid programs at the federal level is organized around the traditional credit programs. And so there's some debates in Congress about opening up financial aid for students in non-credit workforce programs, and that would be a good step forward. Because yes, largely, if you come to a community college and you want to be on the non-credit side, there isn't a lot of financial assistance. Obviously, the cost structure of community colleges is competitive, because of the government investment that's already existing in the colleges, and the workforce funding is important. But these are all great opportunities ahead that we need to keep
State and federal opportunities, I like that. So we're actually out of time, but I realize a slight flaw in the design, which is we didn't leave any time for questions for you. So I'm going to steal a little time from my own next panel and give you 2 questions if you're game for that.
Great.
Is that
Sure, most
so
definitely.
We have 2 questions, so no one wants to ask a question. They all know you so well. Or have done such a good job. Questions? Come on, someone has a question. There? Okay, yes, sir.
This may be something you can answer, it may not be something you can answer. In terms of Governor's Bill Murphy, free community college, is that a reality? If so, how does that impact people trying to transition to work?
Great question. So as many of you know, Governor Murphy has made a commitment both during the campaign and now that he's been elected to getting to a point in a couple of years where community college is free for every individual and it becomes an entitlement as 2 more years of education. And obviously, we're very excited about working with the administration to make that a reality. The current proposal that's working its way through the budget process is for an initial investment of $45 million, focusing on individuals who are earning $45,000 a year and less. And it's hard to imagine, right, hard to believe that if you're, the way our financial aid system works in the federal level and the state level, that if you're making that level of income, that community college isn't free for everybody. The interesting point, I think this might relate to your question, is one of the missing pieces is that if you are a single mom, a single father, or what have you, and you're 35 years old and you want to come back to community college, you're getting less financial aid because you're an independent. You may be working a minimum wage job and you are not going to get the kind of aid that you would if you were a dependent and you had parents and you were living at home. That's another flaw, I think, in the way that the Pell Grant system works. Hopefully we'll find a way to address that. But Governor Murphy's proposal would address that issue. So if we got people coming out of the juvenile justice system that may not no longer be living at home and they're independent, they may not right now be getting the kind of aid and support that they would be getting if we move in this direction, particularly with the initial investment that Governor Murphy has proposed. So I think there's a lot of questions and a lot of work that we have to do to get to this point. But we are, from the the beginning of our conversation, I firmly believe, I think we all believe in the community college world, that we need to make sure that more people have an industry-valued credential or degree. If they don't, they're going to fall behind. We're going to have a less competitive workforce. We're going to have a not as strong New Jersey as we could possibly have. We've always had a strong, skilled workforce in New Jersey, but if we don't keep making these decisions and these investments, we're going to fall behind and not be a good place for businesses to want to be because we don't have the innovative workers to meet their needs.
Yeah, great. Is there one last question? Okay, well, I look forward to enlisting your help in that DC battle. I'm definitely working on that Pell, myself very committed to trying to crack open Title IV in that way, and we'll be calling you.
Great, and thank you for putting this together. And it's so great to look at this audience and see so many people from such diverse organizations. And I think this is really a testament to the work that we've all done in New Jersey over the last 15 years to help build a more integrated, innovative workforce development pipeline. And there's a lot of work ahead for all of us to do. And thank you and the others for pulling us all together for this conversation.
Well, it's not just a pipeline, it's a career education community.
Yes.
And yes, good point.
Great.
Thank you for pointing that out. Okay, well,
Thank
very
you.
rich conversation. Sorry
Thank
to
you.
have to end it. Thank you.
Thank you.
We're going to continue the conversation. This session will continue the conversation about community colleges. And we have very little time and a great panel, so I'm going to be really quick in framing it. And I'm going to pose the problem in slightly challenging terms, stark terms. In New Jersey and nationally, community colleges are where the post-secondary students are, right? We hear a lot, you open the newspaper, you read about boot camps, you read about apprenticeship, you read about the workforce system. Boot camps, there's 17,000 people nationwide in boot camps. That's nice, boot camps are great. there's 12 million people in community colleges. And the numbers are, it's similarly stark in comparison to the workforce system and apprenticeship. There's about 500,000 apprentices nationwide. Many of them are at community colleges or studying at community colleges, but 500,000 compared to 12 million. And the workforce system, 175,000 people getting trained. So, this is where the opportunity is. This is where the customers are, so to speak. Nationwide, and I won't speak to New Jersey, nationwide, community colleges are very, very, very uneven. Did I say very uneven in quality? Some are really focused on career education and doing a great job. Some are focused on getting kids to 4-year degrees and doing a good job at that. Some are not that focused on either and not doing a good job at anything. Graduation rates, as we know, are low. So, to me, the challenge everywhere is how for the state to help, and I'll be, provocative, prod and incentivize community colleges to step up to the plate and provide more career education and better career education. And I think that is happening in New Jersey, as we started to talk about with Aaron, but I don't think it's automatic or easy or, happening kind of by itself. So we're going to run this conversation, so provocative challenge to you all. That's what the challenge we're trying to talk about. I'm going to run this panel as a little bit of, I should be sitting with them because I'm going to try to play talk show host. So forgive me for standing over you and playing talk show host. But we're going to give each person, I'm going to ask questions of each panelist, and each panelist will have a chance to answer some questions, and then we'll ask some questions we'll discuss among ourselves, and then we'll open it up to your questions. So Ambar, let's start with you. Everyone in the state knows you except I have to try to pronounce your name. Savarmana Morrison. Is that close?
Very nice.
All right. So you're the executive director and CEO of the New Jersey Community College Consortium for Workforce and Economic Development, a division of Aaron's Council of County Colleges, or a subsidiary. I don't know exactly what you call it. That's the nonprofit that coordinates all the 19 colleges that Aaron explained to us and gives them the tools to partner with employers. So can you tell us more about how employers and educators are working together now? Let's talk about now before we get to the future, how they're working together now to provide career education and how the state has helped facilitate that?
Yeah, thanks, Tamar. Yes, the Community College Consortium was formed in 2004 with the sole mission of unifying and harnessing the powers of the 19 community colleges to be a statewide entity and a single point of contact to deliver workforce initiatives at the 21 counties of New Jersey. So in the past 15 years, we have done many different initiatives with the collaboration of employers, the tech schools, and the State Department of Labor. And I think to date, we have served over 150,000 workers of New Jersey, both incumbent as well as unemployed people, at over about 8,000 employers. So these employers are all over the counties. So the colleges have established this relationship, and they are improving it on a day-by-day. However, there are 4.4 million workers in New Jersey, about 800,000 companies. This could be all one-man companies, many of them. About 98% of them are small companies in New Jersey of that number. So we have a long way to touch every employee and every employer in the state. So I'll give you a couple of quick examples of this type of work that we have done. Our longest and probably even the state's largest program is the NJBIA, who's a sponsor here, with over 20,000 employer members in the organization. NJBIA Basic Skills Training. So in that program, about 11 years ago, NJBIA did a survey and found out that a lot of small employers, and even big employers, found that their employees lack basic skills to do their jobs properly at workplace. So we put together a proposal with the state, and the State Department of Labor funded us to begin this program. Now, 11 years later, that program is very successful, one of the largest in the state, and legislature then provided us a steady stream of funding every year. It's part of our budget allocation. So a lot of good things have happened working with the legislature and the companies and the industry associations like NJBIA. So that's a huge program that is ongoing.
Okay, that's great, and that's a great example. Let's segue to the future, right? So what's the next step? And I know we're missing a few steps. There were some things after basic skills, but let's look ahead. How you've got the basic skills, you've got this basic triangular relationship between the colleges, the businesses, and the state as kind of the midwife. What's the next step for this?
Well, before I say that, so one of our more recent programs is the advanced manufacturing that Aaron alluded to. Only 4 colleges, when we started this initiative, had shop floor. So NJBIA again got involved. They told us that they couldn't hire entry-level manufacturing workers. And then we decided that we would go after that, solving that problem. And I think we have Camden County College team here well represented. President Borden is here. I think Kevin Schmidt, who is a professor, he's here. He wrote the book on the advanced manufacturing program that we initiated in 2012. And lo and behold, it's a runaway success. I think to date we have created more than 400 machine operators who progress and become machinists down the road. And these programs speak to the terms of NIMS certification. In fact, 95% of our graduates from this program pass the NIMS 1 certification, and we are working on next level, NIMS 2 certification. That's the setup. So what we are trying to do statewide is sort of come up with the uniform standards. You heard the coordinated autonomy word that Aaron used. All the 19 colleges are autonomous. So we're trying to, if this program is delivered in one college, they would have so many credits for the program, and they would be transferable between the institution. So that's the model that we are moving to, but we are not there yet. So that is something that we want to do because we see the declining traditional students.
Right.
Because of the high school graduate numbers are becoming less and less, and we lose candidates, students coming into the community colleges. So we talked about the 50% of non-traditional students at the colleges. So we are trying to figure out a way to tap into that so that they can come in at any point in their career with the credits that they earned in the past and take maybe credit courses and work toward a certificate or a degree to complete their education. So that's an untapped potential.
So hold that thought, because we're going to come back to that later in the conversation. That's a deep interest of mine, too. Dr. Keating, and I'm sorry, I'm talking, this is like I'm your shrink, talking from behind you. I apologize. Frederick Keating is the president of Rowan College of Gloucester County, which is just down the road. And you run obviously the county college in this county. You work closely, very closely with the high school where we're sitting, and also the public university a few towns over. How do those relationships, both relationships, help you provide better career education, and how has state policy facilitated that? And hold off on your next step, because that's what I'm going to ask you next.
Okay, well, first of all, welcome to Gloucester County, New Jersey.
Thank you.
Yes, we are Rowan College at Gloucester County, strongly affiliated with the Career Technical School here, and also with Rowan University, which is 2 exits down for those of you not from this area on Route 55, the interstate right behind us here at the college in the VOTEC. We were charged a few years ago by our Senate President Steve Sweeney to take a look at this idea of where the community college could be a different player. Community colleges in this country are going through a tremendous transformation. Mentioned about enrollment drops, and I believe we're tremendously underutilized in this country, certainly in this state. And so we were charged with an idea of trying to become kind of the pivotal piece in the middle of the high school to senior partner relationship. So we created a consortium here in Gloucester County that we call Rowan Work and Learn. It is somewhat unique. It's different. We're partnering with other county colleges in the region. But basically, it's a 6-part puzzle, 3-part education, the vocational school, the county college, and a senior partner university college, and 3 individuals in the labor workforce domain, which in our case is what you heard earlier from Aaron and others, is we're moving our workforce and economic development onto the county college site. So we'll be building a building for them to be sited on the college campus. That puts them adjacent to also the vocational and 2 exits away from the university. So workforce development, economic development, we put the Chamber of Commerce in the arena, as well as the One Stop, or now the American Job Center. So it wasn't rocket science per se, but it was unique to get education to try to be the connective piece. And we believe the community college is the connective piece. We are that pivotal piece in the middle that can go traditional and non-traditional in our programmatic delivery. So everything I heard this morning earlier fits the concept. So when we brought the 6 parts together on one site, we then had to infuse it with program and design from a high school population to a non-traditional population through workforce development and the job center. The hard part was getting those 6 entities in the room. That was the hardest part, to get those 6 partners in a room to recognize one common vision, one common mission. It's a work in progress. We're only a year into it. But having that now, we've used all of the considerations I've heard. It's a pathway-driven program. We have insisted on a PLA, or a prior learning assessment. We do offer certificates as much as we offer degrees.
Great.
We are strong in our belief that a certificate should yield credit. I heard that earlier today. We think strongly that it should be, and it should be financially supported by government equal to those students that are in credit status. We also believe in this idea of on and off ramping, where you can get on and off at any point. We do require and provide an internship program, and what we tell the chamber and industry is that you must put money in the game. You can't play it unless you're in it. So what we obligate them to do is take 5 interns per year, and they must be paid internships, along with cooperative education and what we call experiential learning. Remember, we have a senior university, a research university in the partnership. So when they leave the community college, we can send you in many directions and bring you back on for the junior year at our site with the university, which is a CUGS, Certificate of Undergraduate Study, another credential that's industry valued and certified, inserted into the latter. Lastly is the baccalaureate, and again, we're encouraging the employers with our co-op and internship. They're making promissory employment offers to these students with the idea that they'll pay for the senior year completion and the baccalaureate degree.
Wow.
So that's a 1-minute consideration.
That's great. Yeah. That's
of what we took were parts that are in New Jersey by best practice, and the trick is getting it into one practice with each player putting something on the table of not only programmatic advice, quality training back and forth with industry and faculty. And yes, this is a change for education, higher ed. This is tail wag dog, now dog wags tail. By that I mean industry and labor drive the demand. We in education must adjust to that demand and provide that type of training with experiential learning or this idea. So Rowan University, as a university now, can't speak for them, but we're partnered with them, is spinning their university toward this idea of a work relationship environment, very much that's been experienced in Philadelphia and in this region with a Drexel and NJIT and some of the other people that have spoken about it. I believe all of higher ed is moving in that direction, that it's going to be attached to real work experience, and we need labor to open door, advise on curriculum and content, but also pay these individuals to be a part of their internship, so that money goes back to affordability of education.
So quick follow-up, and hold a lot of those thoughts. I want to come back to them. But, are your traditional faculty, screaming and quitting and threatening to murder you? I mean, this is a big change.
Like every other day.
This is a big change.
What else is new? It is a big shift in higher education. Again, we're preaching again that, in our opinion, I'll be speaking for myself only, that tail was wagging dog. That the education community was telling labor, here's what you want, here's what you need. Somewhere in the middle of that conversation, it was either off target or we just missed the runway. If we shift the paradigm, if we come around, we went by labor. We took New Jersey labor standards. We took the study that they've done in those 7 domains. I call them the 7 domains of high demand: healthcare, pharmaceuticals, such and that. And we went in and we just took that research and not reinvented it, but embedded it, went to the academics and said, we're going to design curriculum and program, brought industry to advise it so it's current, relevant, and in demand, and it's industry valued, as we call it, and then injected that in. Then we put it in a non-credit credit relationship, and the non-credit walks over with credit.
What does that mean? What does that mean?
Well, the individual may come in for their first year, not sure of, they're a non-traditional 30-something-year-old in a change of employment. They're going to come in to get a certificate, and then we would give them the certificate, then out the door they went. So we felt that we would give them incentive if we could convert that training to the hours and the equivalency to be credit. You've got 15 credits now, you've got 30 credits now. Come on, we can advise you on a pathway how you can move that to an associate's degree. Once you got an associate, we're embedded with the four-year school. They actually come physically to our site. We can then counsel you into the CUGs, and at the junior year, you get a certificate of undergraduate study that may be good enough for your industry. You depart. They may then employ you and bring you back and assist you with tuition for the baccalaureate. So our program goes from the high school here with Mike through the college, on to the university, and again, it's saddled with workforce development, economic development, Chamber of Commerce, and the one-stop or the job center.
That's great.
Parallel tracks, but they intersect at all markets. So again, it's not that creative, but it's creative in its idea of companionship and cooperation. To me, the frustration always been that we are silo-driven. That's the way it works. Faculty had problem with it. The idea of then analyzing, these industry certificates and moving that over to credit relationship. But it can be done, it's being done, and it has to be done. Because that time and that training is valuable, and it shouldn't just be a certificate that sits alone, that it's not incorporated into the general track of advancing one's education.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, it's sort of like a duh model. Let's put everyone doing it in the same room and get them working together, but we know it's not easy. So a very powerful model. Thank you. We'll come back to a lot of those things. Ted, you're the Senior Technical Advisor at Rosenberger North America. You're the employer in the room.
Right.
Everybody's been talking all day
White
about
elephant,
the employers, the employers, the employers. I'm sorry there's only one of you, but thank you for being here. You're the former owner, and still advisor there, but the former owner of a small advanced manufacturing firm, and you're active with several national employer groups that work to encourage cooperation between educators and employers. So what would you say, this is your chance to grade all these people, what would you say New Jersey community colleges are doing right, and what did state policy have to do with it? And hold off, because I'm going to ask you what else you want them to do, but for now tell me what you see them doing right.
Well, because we're in precision manufacturing, it's part of advanced manufacturing. It's a subset of it. We really feel that you've heard of the skills gap. Well, we consider it a technology gap, not just a skills gap. It's for the community colleges, the technology is growing so fast that they need to be able to filter through that, and that's where the employers come in. What do we really need to look at the whole picture of manufacturing? What subset of manufacturing do we need in our areas? So that's really, they listen. The community colleges listen, and the community colleges have great advisory boards that I've been to. I sit on 2 different community college advisory boards, and they listen to us. So as part of that we in turn work with them on the co-op programs. We interview students for programs. We also do the internships along with that. And in some cases, through the CTEs, we're starting to use some of our industry experts, subject matter experts, to help the instructors, because the instructors don't have all the technology information or training that they really needed. And also, we're really encouraged what we heard about today as far as the non-traditional students. I think the non-traditional students are really going to be a help to fill the gap that we have. And it also, there's the filling the pipeline, which I'll talk about a little bit later. I want to get into how we fill the pipeline to the community colleges. So, and also one of the ideas is that we're using, we don't hire blue collar workers in our industry. We hire blue tech workers. So, we need a higher technology level, a higher skill level employee that just can't be taught, and even in a high school level, unless you're a CTE. So we have to go to the community colleges. They have the resources. So, I think that that without them, our industry would be struggling.
So tell us, look down the road, what would you like to see happen next? And talk to us about certifications. You're a great champion of certifications. How does that fit in?
Certifications are credentialing. I think that, and the idea that the community colleges are working with that, and even the state, is one of the things the state does, that they said if you're having a training program, we need to have an output of an industrial certificate, and that's important. And even the community colleges, where they're doing degree programs, they're actually embedding the credentials inside the degree programs. And what that helps the industry, because it depends on where they get trained at, they could have different skill levels. So now with tying it to an industrial credential, they can be trained in North Jersey or in Texas and still have the same skill levels when they come to apply for employment at our facilities.
And what do you want to see next? So you like the system they have.
Right.
What do you want the community colleges to do? What's the next frontier for you?
Well, the next frontier is actually the apprenticeships. We have to restart the apprenticeships in the United States, revamp them. Now, in the past, apprenticeships, the traditional apprenticeship is a time-based learning, where now we want to actually utilize the industrial certificates as going to a competency-based system, where it isn't time-based. It's basically based on the capability of each student. So we feel that that's going to be the change. So we are working on a program now. We're trying to get approved with the state that is a competency-based apprenticeship program with a career ladder embedded inside of it. So it could take up to 3 years, and that career ladder is also a part of the structure for the student to get different wages. So,
okay, Kermit.
And as far as, and also along with that, being able to get college credits while they're doing that.
College credits while they're doing it,
So then they can bounce back in and get a degree if they wish.
Right. So. Great. So we're going to come back to a few of those things. Kermit, you're the Federal Policy Director at the National Skills Coalition. You're a colleague of mine from Washington. You are a national voice here to give national perspective. I guess that's sort of a bad thing to say, you're a colleague of mine from Washington. Kermit's a colleague of mine from Washington. So talk to us, help us put New Jersey post-secondary career education and post-secondary career education policy in the perspective of the country as a whole. How does New Jersey compare to some other states? Sure. Let's just start there.
Yeah, so I'll talk sort of two observations of sort of things I think New Jersey is doing that are kind of innovative and different from where the rest of the country is. So I mean, I think the first thing, and we sort of reinforce this point a number of times today, but just the fact that New Jersey pays attention to career and technical education and actually has policy built around career and technical education. I mean, obviously Kate was talking about earlier, this is, there are a lot of states that are now starting to implement new CTE policies. We've seen this upsurge in CTE policies at the state level over the course of the past 3 or 4 years. New Jersey really was a leader, I think, at the national level in identifying CTE as a core component of their overall educational scheme and developing these policy tools, including these financial tools that make it easier for career and technical education to be offered to a broad range of students. I think that's really important. In a lot of cases, CTE is sort of off in the back, whether it's at the community college level or at the secondary level. Here in New Jersey, it's really front and center as part of the overall educational spectrum, and I think that's really impressive and important and a model for other states to be looking at. The other thing that I'm particularly struck by, just since this is a post-secondary panel, is I want to, this consortium that the New Jersey Council of County Colleges has with employers working as kind of what we call an intermediary between the business community and the community colleges. This concept of intermediaries is not a new concept. It's been around for a long time, but I think a lot of times people wonder, what do you mean when we talk about an intermediary? And whenever I get asked that question, I always say it's not really a noun, it's a verb, right? It's about recognizing that particularly small and medium-sized businesses often don't have their own HR departments. They often are not training specialists. They need somebody to help them translate into what their skill needs are, what their talent needs are, into education, and vice versa, right? Education needs to have somebody to help interpret what is that employer talking about when they talk about this certification or this skill set. And the problem that we often run into is that, while it seems like it would be really easy for educational institutions and employers to just get together and talk, there's not often someone who's job it is to make sure that that conversation happens, make sure that you continue to solve any barriers that come up in the course of that collaboration, and making sure that both the educational institutions and the employers are accountable for making sure that the program is effective. And so I think, as far as I know, New Jersey is the only state that really has this sort of state-level intermediary led through the community college system. And I think that's really important because it means that employers, whether they're small employers or large employers, know that they have a single point of contact when they're talking to their community colleges. They know that they're getting a consistent product, whether they're in the south of the state or the north of the state. And I think from an educational perspective, it means we don't have to reinvent the wheel every single time a new employer comes in. We have standardized curriculum. We know what advanced manufacturing is looking for. We know what healthcare is looking for. We don't have to invest all of those resources up front for each individual employer. We can take advantages of economies of scale that you don't always have when you don't have this partnership. So I think New Jersey really is a leader in that space. And I think there are a lot of states that are starting to move more in this direction of developing these statewide intermediaries, particularly under the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act and other federal laws that are requiring this intermediary model.
Great, that's really helpful perspective. So follow-up next steps. So, I mean, you can't tell New Jersey where to go, or maybe you can, maybe you want to. I mean, I'm sure you can, maybe you want to. But I mean, judging on the basis of other states that are sort of similar, that have had kind of been at New Jersey's level and gone a next step, what are some things New Jersey might be thinking about or looking at?
Sure. I mean, at the post-secondary level, I think that there's sort of three basic areas that we're looking at and that where we see states taking real important steps. And one we've talked about a lot is this issue of financial aid for non-traditional students. So as we've alluded several times already, the current federal financial aid system, Pell Grants and student loans, really are not geared around the needs of part-time students, working adults, and other non-traditional students. There are a number of states that have started to take steps to address this challenge, whether it's through financial aid for non-credit programs or other adult learners. I think I know that that's something that New Jersey is going to be looking at as part of their free college model, but I think it's really important as we're looking at free college models to remember the needs of less than half-time students, working adults, and other non-traditional students, because they are often left out of the conversation because we often think they don't need financial aid. The second thing that I think a lot of states are looking at is, and it sounds like New Jersey's really pretty far along in this as well, is this concept of stackable credentials. We know that higher education is not going to be linear moving forward, that people are, and we see this today, many students are going to attend college more than once, and they're going to attend a community college more than once at various points in their career as they advance in their career and they get different certifications. So being able to take those credentials and that work experience and have those credentials stack over time. Obviously, New Jersey is doing that. There are a lot of other states that are experimenting with this. I think this is something that we're going to want to see more states doing. The last thing I'll point out, and it came up a little bit during the secondary conversation, is this concept of integrated education and training. So we know that there are 24 million Americans in this country right now who are in the workforce and have very low basic skills, whether it's literacy, numeracy, or digital literacy skills. And those workers have a hard time advancing in their careers, and employers have a hard time hiring and retaining them because those skill gaps become a problem if you're trying to move somebody up the ladder. There's been a lot of really great work around how do you get somebody both basic skills and occupational skills at the same time, whether it's through contextualized instruction or co-teaching models. I think that's a really important model to integrate. I think it's something where community-based organizations and I know the adult student services that are available through the vocational schools here. I think there's some real opportunities for continuing to partner to make sure that you're not just getting a certificate, but you're also, if you need it, getting the literacy, numeracy instruction, and even the GED that you might need in order to get further education. Those are kind of the three state-level policies that we're watching and that we think are kind of the future of higher education.
Great, really helpful. So now let's have some conversation, and again, it's so weird that I'm kind of standing up here behind everyone, but let's try to have a conversation amongst ourselves with a question. I'll throw out some questions for everyone to join in. Let's dig a little deeper on the employer question. So everybody talked about employers, and we talked about where the states come so far with employers, and you described a great model, Dr. Keating, but let me be a little provocative. I mean, we all know, and everybody in this field knows how important employers are to successful career education, but we also know there's a big range of the facts out there, there's a big range of relationships, right? And I mean, the way I characterize them is it's a spectrum from meaningful and effective to check the box relationships. And I don't know, you guys aren't nodding. Maybe you have no check the box relationships in your system. But so the question for me is, what does your organization or institution or the state do to push your relationships toward the meaningful end of that spectrum? You know, is there, I mean, and one, you know, big thing that I think is missing, there isn't even a way to measure, like what's an advisory board that's meaningful as opposed to an advisory board that's really a once-a-year luncheon opportunity. You know, talk to me about that challenge, if you will. How to, and anyone can jump in first. Ted.
There's two programs that we work with from the state. The one is the Advanced Manufacturing Talent Centers. There's one in Camden County. It's where the employers can go there and looking for employees, and or vice versa. They kind of link up together, matchmakers. And then they also have the regional TIP, the industrial targeted industrial partnerships. So again, that's a coalition of employers, educators, and policymakers. So this is just, I think, New Jersey
But let me press.
MVP.
Okay, so that's just a perfect example. How do we make sure that those tips are really meaningful conversations and meaningful advice, and it's not just like a bunch of people coming to the gymnasium on Tuesday night and, you know, having donuts and going home?
I think the problem we have is we need to educate the employers. You talk about educating all the students and all, but we need to educate the employers on the programs that are out there, and I think this is a responsibility of these tips to be able to do that.
A responsibility of who?
Of the organizations, the targeted industry partners.
Right.
It's got to be a two-way conversation.
Interesting. Others want to weigh in on this? Dr. Keating, what's your...
I think that I'm going to stick to my original remark that the idea is that education sits apart and separate from, you know, the industry aspect or the business aspect. And I think you say check the box. To me, that's the chamber or the Rotary luncheon. We go and we talk about golf scores and then we leave.
Exactly.
I think the idea is that I believe it's an education issue, and I selfishly believe it's the linchpin in the middle of the county community college, which is entrenched in that community, to take the statistics of labor and regional demand and put it into real full kind of conversations where we're not just coming in. I have found that by inviting business and industry within those domains of demand into the college arena, making them more comfortable with it, understanding it, and we gave Chamber of Commerce membership a perk to take back to their employers that they can take a 1/3 reduction of tuition for anyone who works for the company. So little things that I think are kind of exchanges to show that it's not a receiver and, you know, a sender and a receiver relationship, but it's melted in the middle. We've talked the game, but we've never played the game. So education has to look at it differently. We believe you have to bring business into your arena. You guide us, you come in to give us academic advice, and they see that it's taken and reviewed. You're the expert. You know, you tell us what the industry demand is and the qualification of the training. We adapt curriculum and faculty to that design. And that to me is a different avenue. And it's cultural. And cultural systemic shifts take time. But I'm a believer that if you do it, and you do it with purpose as opposed to socialization as well, you get industry buy-in. And once they get comfortable with it, because in the end they're there to grab students of the future for workforce development. They're coming in now sniffing around to look at population to earmark students that they'll say in the internship, again, you go on, we'll help pay, and your promissory return to us, we'll pay some of your debt, or we'll do this, or we'll take payroll deduction to pay off student loan and such. So I guess what I'm driving at is I think that the educators have to become the catalyst of action, bring the industry in, but give them a purpose that they're not wasting their time, that they're giving us advice, they're giving us credible information, the credentialing aspect. I'm just a total believer in the certificate versus degree, that they're of equal weight.
Right. And you mean industry certifications?
Yes.
Right? Yeah.
I'm going to say equal weight, and I know that's heresy in my profession, and I won't be invited to the next presidency.
We're going to come back to this.
But this idea that it is entrenched in, that an individual leaves with experience, affordability, accessibility, on-off ramping, prior learning counts for something, not just experience, but credit. And the idea that you then link it up and down the high school to the community college to the four-year school with possibility of return at any point or any level. and that business is right there with you, and that they have to put money in the game. The ask I would have of industry is if education commits to this cultural shift, you would then receive the student, intern, co-op, whatever you want to call it, experiential learning, and again, pay it. Pay it. It can't just be thanks. We'll take them, no money in the game, and maybe, we'll pick the litter coming out. No, you have to co-invest in it, because that's where affordability comes in, that person then has incentive, goal, and they have the vision of how to get there, but they also have $1 in their pocket to pay for it.
Right, that's great. And it picks up on Kermit's theme of the community colleges really taking the role of the intermediary. It's not waiting for the companies to come to you. It's getting them in the door, but then kind of putting them in the driver's seat, right? Then they're the customers. You invite them in the door, and they're the customers. No?
Well, me? I believe yes, because I think otherwise they don't have skin in the game.
Right.
I mean, when they see that their time and their energy, again, we bring, in our case, we're part of the consortium, but when we get local here, we bring into our MOU with the businesses that want to be advisory and participatory, we put them in the position where when you take them, we have your employees and our faculty trained together.
Right.
And at first everybody's like, whoa. It's okay. You can be in the same room. And the idea of staff development for both becomes pretty much uniform, or at least it touches once in a while, to where then, once again, there's cultural buy-in. If you don't get the business to buy, and I have experienced the first year we've done this, stackable ton of Rowan relationship, once they understand and see the benefit and the value to them on the outcome, but then also in the participation, it's time and money well spent. Not only for the capture of the individual, but also for the idea that they're in the design aspect of what the education is going to be. They have to have that kind of input.
So Ambar, I want your input on this, and let's also, because we're running out of time, let's segue a little bit back to the non-traditional students. So, everybody's brought up non-traditional students, and I'm really pleased about that because I care about them a lot. But there are some roadblocks here, right, in terms of getting them the credit. And Dr. Keating's spoken to it a little bit. But where do we see New Jersey going on this? And feel free to speak to the employer point, too. But I'd love to hear you specifics on the non-traditional students and the credit.
Yeah, sure. I used to be the continuing education dean at a couple of colleges. So typically, between the college, there's non-credit division and then the credit division. And there's not a lot of a conversation between the two to articulate the programs that the continuing education division would do. And I think we are consciously making efforts now to have those conversations before we begin any programs, so that there is a buy-in from the faculty into the programs that the non-traditional students take.
That's really interesting.
And then when Fred talked about the employers coming into the picture, and that is huge. We talked to manufacturing community, utilities industry, of late, NJ Transit, the transportation industry. All of them have the same issue. Their workforce is aging, and the new young people are not coming into that industry. And there are a lot of challenges there. They are not recruiting broadly enough, and many of the candidates that go to get a job cannot even pass the entrance test that they have. So we are now in discussions with the NJ Transit to provide education and training for the prospects to pass the exam. So it's a meeting of the minds between the employer community and the colleges that we are playing a huge role in that going forward.
Yeah, it's gotten a lot easier to play with employers since the economy got good. I mean, somebody made that point on an earlier panel. We are actually running out of time, and I'm sorry, I let it get away from me. Let's have a few questions, and then there'll be a lightning round. And Kermit, you'll get a chance to come back. Questions? Yes, ma'am. The microphone's coming to you. Please tell us who you are.
Thank you for the microphone. I'm Gail Spark from NJIT. You've been talking about cultural shift and very innovative methods of addressing it. There's one that has not come up, at least from what I've heard, and I think it's huge, because we are talking about helping our students, young and old, to have jobs in the future. I'm referring to how do any of the panelists think about artificial intelligence and its impact on which jobs will remain, which jobs will be new, and how the jobs that we're now training and educating people for, what new skills they need to have. But this could really be the sea change changer. So
Okay,
I'd like your comments.
So I'm going to focus the panel a little bit. You don't have to tell us whether you think robots are going to be good or bad for America. That's a big question. But if you could tell us how you think educators can keep up with AI and with robots. And let's start with Ambar and go this way.
Yeah, so this situation that Gail brought up is very similar to the vanishing manufacturing companies in the US, because the manufacturing companies, the workers in the old days did typical assembly level jobs. So all the manufacturing shifted to low cost area, but the manufacturing is coming back, and the profile of a manufacturing employee today is a lot different than a typical assembly workers. So I think it's the same concept where artificial intelligence is going to be replacing, anything from a driver to a assembly level worker at the factory. But we still need people to be technologically savvy to work with those machines in order to program them to do the jobs that the people are doing. So the level of expertise and training has to increase to match with that kind of a scenario.
And keep up, right?
Yeah,
That's
keep up,
the hard
yes.
part, keep up. Ted?
Well, it's very similar to what happened in the last 20 years with farming. I mean, farming, you used to have one guy for a tractor. Now you have one guy and 10 tractors. They're all atomically working together. So I think it's just utilizing the tools, and as the tools get to be more technical and more AI, they're going to have more higher skill level. So the community colleges are going to really have to fight to keep up with that. But I don't see it for the foreseeable future. One of my jobs, I'm a technical advisor, so that's what I go out there and look for new technologies for our company, for manufacturing. So I see it happening in the future with the additive manufacturing, but it's still 10, 15 years out to where it really affect the product, the bottom line of companies and all. It's there. You got to keep an eye on it. But I don't think it's going to be a threat for a few more years yet. So.
Kermit, how do educators keep up with it?
I was at this another community college last week, and we got this fascinating presentation that pointed out that at some point you won't need financial analysts anymore because computer systems are so good at sort of identifying these challenges. And I was like, oh, that's an entire universe of workers who, in many cases, have bachelor's degrees or master's degrees or beyond. Who are, and so I think two lessons that I took away from that. One is the kinds of students that we think of as being impacted by artificial intelligence or robotics is a much broader universe potentially of workers, and they're going to look different from the kind of the non-traditional students. In many cases, they're going to be coming back with where they've had extensive education, but they need to shift to a new industry. So I do think that that's something to start to be thinking about. Is you are going to see, I think, more non-traditional students, older workers, people who are coming in for second careers who really do need to be able to replace that income, but transition to new industries and be able to utilize skills and work experience that they've had in one industry and be able to shift it over to another. That's something that we've started to do. We started to do it during the Great Recession, but it's not something we've really figured out how to do at scale. So I do think that's something to be aware of. I think more broadly, it just, and community colleges I think are very well equipped to deal with this. There's just, the reality is that you're never going to stop going to college at some point, and I don't think that's going to happen this year or next year, but 20, 30 years from now, you're never going to stop needing post-secondary education to continue to make a living. And so I think that that's something we're going to have to start to think about is the capacity that you're going to need for where every single worker really is going to need some access to post-secondary education at some point in their life. We don't have a system that's built around that, but we're going to need it 20, 30 years down the road.
Dr. Keating, briefly, I have one more. We're out of time already, and I have one more question I want to ask. So, do you have an answer on AI?
Well, again, if I'm in seconds, I would just say that we know that we're preparing individuals for jobs today that will be gone tomorrow. Mm-hmm. And I'll go back to where I started. Therefore, that we in education have to have these kind of linkages with business and industry, just like we do with the education arena, with us, with Rowan University now being part of us part of them, us part of the vocational school. We have this track that runs through in our allied health, in our engineering, in our computer science, everything else that we're going to try to stay with them and with industry to stay current, because yes, it's going to be different, and by the time we get out of lunch, it'll be different.
Okay, so we don't go to lunch yet. We have one more question, lightning round. If you have further questions for them, they will be around, I think, after the panel. So lightning round, that means lightning round. That means seconds answers. Free community college. For, against, what do you think?
Yes, I'm an immigrant from India. All my school, college is all paid for by the government. I say yes.
Okay.
I say yes, but it needs to include non-traditional students.
Good answer.
I agree with that. I would add, it can't just be tuition, it also needs to be support services to help make sure that people can finish and complete their programs.
Dr. Keating?
We're the one trying to make it work.
Good answer.
I don't know what the word free means, and I'm not so sure that I would accept the word free, even from a socio-behavioral perspective. But I do believe that education should be reinforced. I believe we have the tools now. I just think it's a redirection of the money because there's two runways that we're looking at. Affordability and accessibility, of course, but also we, New Jersey, all the states, are looking at capturing talent. So if we're going to invest, there has to be some aspect of an investment that if it's going to be close to free, I'm a last dollar guy. I believe that there should be student involvement in the game to the point the family and the student can. The last dollar knocks it down. Okay, that's free. If that's free, I'm in. And then with the idea that then business and industry has to come in to be a player in that financial equation. And then in the end, I believe that that we should work again with the four-year schools so that this kind of money and tracking is going to be, it's got to be back-ended. The high school diploma is now being moved up to the associate's degree as the new high school diploma. Hence, the baccalaureate's coming down as baseline education. Okay. Our students are looking at bills to go to graduate school, doctoral, and/or research. And that's where this conversation has to land. And if it's going to do that, we've got to front-load the idea of backloading money, therefore less expensive, skin in the game, business pay a little bit, and if that's free, I'm in.
I like it. That's a good definition of free. I'm sorry we're out of time. This is a very rich conversation. I'm sure you have questions for them. There is lunch outside. Please enjoy it, and please take the opportunity to speak to our panelists. Andy, do you want to say a word of closing? Are you still here? Do you want to say a word of closing? Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for a great morning. Thank you so much.